I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board to order. That's something we have to deal with. The system we have tonight, the town public address system is not functioning. These little things we have in front of us are going directly to the camera, so they're going to pick us up. So anyone, when you're speaking, either from the public to us or us to you, anything like that, please speak up so everyone in the public can hear. Panda's going to get all this through these, but these do not go to the public address system.
Why don't you have people come up and deal on these?
Well, they can speak, but then once again, it'll be to Panda. They still won't, the public still won't hear the people who are here tonight. Okay. I believe the meeting agenda stands as written. I don't believe there's any changes or alterations. And
The agenda included the referrals.
I think it
There are 3 referrals.
it didn't. Okay, we do have 3 ZBA referrals that
Are in the meeting notes.
they're in the meeting notes. So we will be dealing with those under Town Board, ZBA, and Zoning Enforcement Officer referrals. I'm depressed to inform, well, actually, first of all, could I hear a motion to accept Art's meeting notes?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. I think we don't have any minutes to deal with tonight, and I don't know of any non-agenda correspondence or announcements, other than the fact that the new zoning enforcement officer informed the town supervisor the night before she was going to start that she wasn't going to start. So, sadly enough, there's still a temporary person filling in who would really like to see someone else do this. So, you know, anybody out there who would be interested in being a zoning enforcement officer for the town of Rhinebeck, with all the benefits, prestige that carries with it, please inform John Gautier, the town clerk, of your interest. Quickly. So, I don't know that I have anything else to say right now.
Any small zoning referrals we can pick up?
Well, maybe we can do that,
About
yes.
5 minutes.
If we look at the meeting notes,
2 of the 3 are seem to be very straightforward. If you go to page 9 and page 10 of my notes, Michael, you can see
Yeah.
that the Freeman as agent for Tadini and the Kelly as agent for Crosset are both single-family dwelling setback variances that come into play because of the rezoning several years ago. One case involves a .45 acre non-complying lot in the RA10 district. The other one deals with a 9/10 of an acre existing lot of record in the RC5 district, where obviously the new setbacks or the setbacks for the larger districts really can't be met by the non-complying lots.
I have reviewed both of these, which is why they go to the ZBA. I saw no issues with them. If the zoning had not changed, these people would not be before us. It didn't seem to present any zoning or any planning issues, just the fact that the lots, the districts have now been upzoned and the lots, of course, stayed the same. So what I'll do is I'll read you the resolution for Mr. Freeman first. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board has reviewed upon referral the application for area variances submitted by David Freeman as agent for Vivian Tadini and finds the requested variances to authorize a reduction in the RA10 district requirements for front building setback from 150 to 128 feet and a side yard setback from 100 feet to 9 feet to allow a 180 square foot dining room addition to an existing single-family dwelling located on a substantially non-complying .45 acre lot to raise no other significant planning, zoning, environmental issues. The Planning Board understands there to be the presence of practical difficulties cited in the application, recommends the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts and decide this application in accordance with the criteria and procedures set forth at Town Code Chapter 125, Sections 125-124C and D, including due consideration of the input of neighboring property owners. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. For Patrick Kelly, once again, it's they're replacing a house. I think it was may even have been a mobile home or something like that on the Marquette Drive and Old Wurtemberg Road down at the southern termination of Old Wurtemberg. And once again, the area went from 3 to 5 acres. Things have been upzoned, and that's why this is before us tonight. So I'll read you this resolution. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board has reviewed upon referral the application for area variances submitted by Patrick Kelly Jr. as agent for James Crosset and finds the requested variances to authorize reductions in front building setback to both Old Wurtemberg Road from 100 feet to 62 feet and Marquette Drive from 100 feet to 53 feet, so as to permit the construction of a replacement single-family dwelling on a substantially non-complying .92-acre existing lot of record in the RC5 district, to raise no other significant planning, zoning, or environmental issues. The Planning Board understands there to be the presence of practical difficulties cited in the application and recommends the ZBA rely upon its own study of the facts and decide this application in accordance with the criteria and procedures set forth at Town Code Chapter 125, Sections 125-124C and D, including due consideration of the input of neighboring property owners. Could I have a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Very good.
The third referral is much more complicated, and I
Yeah.
recommend you come back to it at the end of the meeting.
And I think, as luck would have it, we're ready for our first public hearing. So, I will read this, and then I will be recusing myself. Red Wing Properties, Inc., former Vincent Kinlan Mine, 234286 White Schoolhouse Road, special use permit and site plan. Further continuation from May 5th, 2014, as previously continued from February 3rd, March 3rd, and April 7th, 2014, of public hearing on applications for special use permit and site plan review and approval under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning in the matter of a proposed special use permit to continue mining within 9 acres of 38-acre life of mine area within the rural countryside, RC5, and soil mining overlay districts, and to introduce within the 9-acre area subaqueous mining with related installation of DEC-approved turtle fence being unlisted action under seeker, the purpose of the latest continuation being to receive input from the Planning Board attorney on the letter of April 17th, 2014 from the project attorney concerning the applicability of the site access issue to the Planning Board's proceeding under Town Code and seeker, and I will turn it over to the Vice Chair.
Thank you. We have received 2 letters that I will read into the record. The first is from Steve and Patty Labotsky. You're here. Would you like to read this letter? You want me to read it into the record?
I have yet another one, so you can read that.
Want me to read this one?
Sure.
All right. It is addressed to Dear Planning Board members and dated June 2nd, 2014. Red Wing Access. Do they have legal access through our property? We say no. We stand by the fact that they do not, nor has Red Wing ever openly or legally had access to our property. We had a verbal agreement with Vince Kinlan that as long as the Labotsky family was able to farm his fields, then the Labotsky family would allow Mr. Decker to access the mine through our property. It was also understood that either party could terminate this at any time. Had we known 10 years ago that Vince Kinlan was a front for RW, we would have terminated the access road then. The Labotskys have been historically farming and utilizing the access road to Kinlan property, formerly owned by the Morans, for almost 75 years, long before RW came to town. Does this give us the right to own their property or tell them what they can do with it? I'm sure Mr. Doherty will tell us no, but maybe we should look into this. They have a 1/2 mile road frontage on White Schoolhouse Road. It is up to them to go through the process of accessing their mine through their property. The burden of access to the mine should not fall on the Labotsky family. Thank you, Stephen and Patricia Labotsky. We also, dated June 2nd, 2014, have another letter. This is addressed to me as the acting chair of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, Red Wing, and it is from the law offices of Marvin and Marvin. Dear Ms. Moore and members of the Planning Board, I represent Steve and Patty Labotsky, who reside at 177 White Schoolhouse Road. In regard to the application for a new or modified special permit to mine on White Schoolhouse Road, I understand that Red Wing Properties has informed the Planning Board that 1, it has the right of access through my client's property, and 2, that even if the right of access is disputed, it should not be a concern of the Planning Board in considering the special permit application. On both points, Red Wing is wrong. Red Wing has no right of access whatsoever. I reviewed relevant title records, and there is no evidence of a grant of any easement or license by the owner of the Labotsky parcel that extends a right of access to Red Wing. Access by its predecessors was strictly permissive, so there is no prescriptive right of access. Any argument that there is frivolous. Moreover, it is entirely appropriate for the planning board to set as a condition for a special permit proof of a right of access. Under the code, the planning board must, among other things, consider or do the following: protect the community from traffic congestion and conflicts, ensure that the impacts can be mitigated by compliance with reasonable conditions, require modifications to development proposals, submission of alternative design and layout proposals, and may attach reasonable conditions and safeguards to eliminate or minimize potential impacts as a precondition of its approval. Town of Rhinebeck Code, Chapter 125, Zoning, 12565. Accordingly, it is perfectly reasonable and appropriate to require Red Wing to present an alternative design or access point that is not in dispute, rather than one that is in dispute. By making proof of a right of access a condition, the planning board is protecting against conflicts, mitigating potential impacts on the Lobatsky parcel, and safeguarding or eliminating impacts posed by the application. Even more fundamental is the fact that Red Wing includes property in its site plan application that it does not own and for which it has no easement or license. Application for any kind of zoning approval must be made by the owner or someone with the express written consent of the owner. Red Wing is not allowed to include Lobatsky parcel as part of its site plan without their express authorization. Telling the planning board to ignore this is wrong. Respectfully, John Marvin. At this point, I'd like to ask our planning board attorney to get back to us with his opinion on the letters that we sent to him after the last planning board meeting.
My name is John Lyons. I'm the counsel to the planning board. I'm going to try to speak into Tracy's mic here. I apologize for getting this memo to you at the last minute. I ended up getting sick, and hopefully my voice will hold out tonight. The board asked me to, as you were processing this application, a question came up regarding the right of Red Wing to access its existing mine over the Lobatsky parcel of property. The special use permit application that's in front of you right now is premised on access being gained over the Lobatsky parcel. It came to the attention of the board during its review of this application that Red Wing may not have the Lobatsky's permission to do that. And we began to look into that issue. The issue of access and points of access for mines, as you probably already know, most of the regulation of mining operations has been superseded by the state of New York and is taken care of by the DEC. But in state law, there are a few areas that have been reserved for localities to regulate, and ingress and egress and regulation of transportation routes on town roads are two areas that have been specifically left within the jurisdiction of localities. And here in Rhinebeck, we have chosen to regulate both of those things, and they are both criteria that have been set up as part of the special use permit criteria for getting a special use permit for a mine. As you already know as well, ingress and egress are very important issues with regard to safety, with regard to impact on the neighborhood, with regard to making decisions about how traffic should be routed along town roads. And you really can't make an effective decision about a special use permit unless you have definitive information about ingress and egress for a particular application. In this case, as we said, ingress and egress is being proposed over the Lobatsky parcel. The first order of business was to check into the issue of whether or not there really was a dispute with regard to access. There's a letter in your file that was submitted by Kevin Bernstein, who is the attorney for Red Wing, and Mr. Bernstein asserted in that letter that Red Wing did have access across the Lobatsky parcel. I got in touch with John Marvin, who is the attorney for the Lobatsky family, and discussed this matter with him, and I asked him to provide the planning board with information to either verify or to deny the issue of whether Red Wing has permission to cross the property. And tonight, the deputy chairwoman read into the record the information that's been supplied by the Lobatskys, and perhaps there's more information that'll be supplied to you tonight as part of the public hearing. But in terms of the facts, it's quite clear that the Lobatsky family is saying that there is no access, no right of access for Red Wing over their parcel. In addition, you'll note that Mr. Marvin, in his letter, said that he looked back over the title records for this property, and he has not been able to find anything in the chain of title that indicates that there's some sort of written permission to cross the property. So, since that being the case, then we have to move to the next issue, which is, given that there's a dispute, how does this fact impact how you should process this application? And I discussed this and laid this out for you in my memo, but you'll see that in the zoning law, for a special use permit application, the applicant is required to file with the board a preliminary site plan which demonstrates access and egress locations. And they're also supposed to submit to you a certification, which you've probably seen, that it avers that the information that's being given to you is true and accurate. And it also contains a section for the owner of the property to sign, to say that they authorize the application. In this case, the applicant has not demonstrated, in my opinion, that they have a right of access over the piece of property that is proposed in this plan. And as a result, I don't think, for the reasons that I've set forth in my memo to you, I don't think that it's possible for you to consider this application complete. In addition, the point that was raised by Mr. Marvin is a legitimate point, that every application that comes before you, if it involves a portion of property that's owned by someone else, that application has to be accompanied by an affidavit of the owner of that property that's letting you know that they're authorizing the applicant to come forward and that they are basically supporting their property's participation in the project as proposed. In this particular case, given the fact that the Lobatsky family is not allowing Red Wing to cross this piece of property, and because this piece of property is essential to the project as it's been proposed to you, I also think that the application is incomplete for that reason as well. The other issue that I'd like to address tonight is the issue that was raised by Mr. Bernstein in his letter to the board, which is that he said to me, well, you know, there's a dispute going on here. You know, what I really think that the planning board should do is just sort of forget about that. That's none of your business. Give us the special use permit as we've requested, and then we'll have to go forth and straighten out our situation with the Lobatsky family, and we'll have the permit in hand, and if we can do that, we'll go ahead and start operating, and if we can't do that, he said, no, I guess we'll have to come back with an amended permit application. I don't recommend that you follow that, even if we could get past the issue of whether, let's just ignore for a second whether the application is complete. I don't think that that's a good method for you to proceed with in this particular instance, and the reason is that the law is pretty clear that they do have to demonstrate that they have some kind of access. Be setting a very poor precedent if you were to be granting permits for parties that haven't been able to demonstrate one of the criteria in the zoning law. And more importantly, right now, as if this is tabled in accordance with what I'm recommending, so the application will just sit before you until Red Wing can, you know, if they can straighten their situation out, then they can come back, and if they can't, they're going to have to come back with an amended application. But in the meantime, the application sits before you and stays in your jurisdiction. If you issue the permit and Red Wing takes the permit and goes forth, you're not going to really have any ability to monitor what goes on. If there are further discussions between the Lobatsky family and Red Wing, If for some reason they do end up agreeing to some kind of agreement for access and the terms of that access change from those that had been historically used, and it's the historical use that's kind of the premise of the present application, you won't have a chance to figure out how that change of terms impacts the special use criteria that you apply when you decide whether or not to use the permit. And if you were to try to claw back jurisdiction over this, you'd be placed in a position, the town would be placed in a position of having to revoke the special permit and go through, you can do that and there's a process for that, but it seems like an unnecessary expenditure of effort in this case, especially since Red Wing will not be prejudiced by your tabling this, because for so long as the Lobatskys don't give them permission, even if they have the permit in hand, they still can't operate across that property. So it's not like they're going to be kept from moving forward, and if they do get permission, they can come back, they'll demonstrate permission, then you'll make a decision about their special use permit, and things will proceed from there. So there's a more detailed explanation which gives you the legal reasons and the citations to the particular sections of the zoning law that support this recommendation, but that is the gist of what I'm recommending, that the matter be tabled until such time as Red Wing can come forward and demonstrate to the satisfaction of the planning board, the reasonable satisfaction, that they do have a right of access over the Lobatsky parcel, since that's the access that is proposed as part of this application.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Questions of John?
Yeah, I forget the legal term, but if you take a situation where a street is closed off one day a year, if it's privately owned, and it's closed off one day for the owner to maintain ownership, if it's not shut down, it becomes accessible to the persons that have been using that. Does this apply or not apply to this situation?
Well, first, okay.
If I'm in the wrong bill, you would just tell me.
I don't think it's
tie it up
our business to figure this question out, but I think that you may be referring to adverse possession.
I don't know what the term is.
I mean, there are particular means by which it's possible that Red Wing, in an action against the Lobatsky family, might try to establish a legal right to come across the property that's based on something that went on between these parties, or based on the behavior of the parties over time. Typically speaking, with adverse possession, it has to be adverse, so that if you're crossing over the property and you have the permission of the person, it doesn't really qualify. So historically, there was some kind of permission here. The circumstances have changed. Mr. Kinlan, he's either not around, or anyway, Red Wing is the owner of that property now, and the parties, will have to sort out what their legal situation is. But John, the Lobatsky's attorney, is saying that he doesn't see an easement or a license. And we haven't had anything further from Mr. Bernstein that would establish those things.
Yeah, we had been keeping the public hearing open, asking Mr. Bernstein and Mr. Doherty to produce documentation, which is why we were continuing the public hearing. They have not provided us with that. In the meantime, we've received these subsequent letters from the Lobatskys and their attorney asserting their position that there is no right of access.
So Woody, the position I think that the board has to take is that this is not our job to figure this out, and on top of that, however it's resolved, if it is resolved, will impact on whatever degree of rights that Red Wing is going to have going into the future. It's incumbent upon Red Wing to come in, to explain what their right is, to explain what the boundaries are on that right, and then you guys have to take that, compare it to the special use permit considerations and the other concerns that you may have about impacts to the neighborhood, and then figure out what conditions to put on the permit.
Sharon, Jesse, any questions? Art, anything you'd like to add?
I'm going to ask John a question. Would it be appropriate for the board to pass a simple resolution to the effect that you've described?
If the board decides to follow my recommendation, my suggestion is yes, that they pass a resolution You can, if you're comfortable with the reasoning that's set forth in my memorandum, you can just say, attach the memorandum and say that it's for the reasons that are set forth in that memorandum and upon the advice of our lawyer.
Well, I just, as you were speaking, perhaps I've got something, John, that might be acceptable to you and the board.
Before we continue with that,
Any public comment?
yeah, I did notice that I have an earlier letter here addressed to us from May 29th. Would you like me to read that into the record as well? This is
Can I say one other thing, Melanie?
Sure.
Melanie, before I go?
Yep.
And that is that this particular opinion that I've written to you is not been presented to you as a confidential communication, so I brought some extra copies here. Members of the public do end up being interested in reading it.
I'll set it here, so those of you from the public who would like to see a copy of that, it's available to you. This was an email correspondence from Steve and Patty Lobatsky dated May 29th. It preceded the earlier correspondence I read to you. And this was directed to Mr. Lyons, not to the planning board. We have been informed by our lawyer, John Marvin, that Red Wing is insisting that they have access rights to our property. We still stand by the fact that they do not, nor has Red Wing ever openly or legally had access to our property. We had a verbal agreement with Vince Kinlan that as long as the Lobatsky family was able to farm his fields, then the Lobatsky family would allow Mr. Decker to access the mine through our property. It was also understood that either party could terminate this at any time. The permits for the mine have run out and the Lobatskys are no longer farming on their property. Red Wing has given us notice to clear their fields of any farm-related items no later than June 15th. The Red Wing's use of the word historically is highly inaccurate. The Lobatskys have owned the land in Rhinebeck since the early 1920s. The barn that will be destroyed with their trucks traveling past it 100 times a day has been standing since the 1700s. That is history. With the birth of our grandson, we the Lobatskys have been here for 5 generations. Red Wing's access through our property will force us to sell our 5-generation historical property at a great loss. Sincerely, Stephen and Patricia Lobatsky. Public comment? Yes. Please come up and introduce yourself and try and speak.
I would like to comment.
Could you come up here and give us your name and try and speak here? Thank you. I know.
Do I need that?
You don't need it, but just, it might help get the...
Security.
Yes, security.
My name is Louis Amaru. I live on Whitesfield House Road. And we may very well, the board may very well decide to table, to accept Mr. Lyons' recommendation.
That's
not working. Okay.
That's just giving it to Panda.
The board may very well recommend that we table this thing, taking Mr. Lyons' recommendation under consideration. But before we do that, I would like to have something clarified, my own, maybe on debts or something that you want to understand about this thing. First of all, in my opinion, Mr. Bernstein's recommendation to Mr. Lyons, I have to use the word that Mr. Bernstein can completely understand, is complete chutzpah. I mean, it's an act of arrogance, actually, telling the lawyer who represents the board, just go ahead and do this thing, let me get my foot in there, and then after that, who knows what we'll be able to do. We may end up having to table this thing as a result of that, but I personally believe strongly that if Red Wing had documentation, they would have presented it a long time ago, that they have proof of access. It's a he says, you says kind of thing in a lot of ways, but if they had proof in writing, you can be sure they would have stuck it right into our faces a long time ago. So what they must have is some arcane view of the law, of land law, that apparently Mr. Lyons was never heard of, I've never heard of, I bet nobody's ever heard of, but they'll come up with something. So frankly, if I were on the board, I would vote to stop this right now, not to table it, just stop it. Because it seems to me that they don't have the evidence that they think they have. And I certainly totally agree with Mr. Lyons that it would be a very, very bad idea to give them the authorization to start going to work. I think that's right. Sorry.
Thank you. Additional comments? Yes, and please come up and address the planning board. Not the audience, as much as we love them.
I just wanted to mention one thing. My name is Sue Greenberg. I'm also on the White Schoolhouse Road. They were given a deadline of March 17th to submit. She asked me to do that.
Really, the comments, I know it's hard. Maybe if you stand over there, maybe you could kind of
I
broadcast
just want to
it.
remind the planning board and everybody else here that they were originally given a March 17th deadline to submit this, submit documentation. They have not done so. We haven't gotten anything that even remotely indicates that they have it. And I agree that there's no reason to table it. Why are we not just knocking it out? You guys set the deadline. They missed it. It's now June 2nd. It's been a while. You were kind enough to extend it, and the deadline has passed. So I don't know why we're giving them so much benefit of the doubt.
Art, do you want to address that?
I'll let John address
John, do you want to
that.
address that?
Sure. Well, first of all, the board wanted to have the opportunity to consult with this lawyer and find out what the situation is. Second, the board is trying to, I mean, part of what we're doing here as a board is trying to be respectful of the rights of everybody that's in the equation. So that means neighbors, but that also means the applicant. And I think that I was just consulted on this recently for the board. I think that the board, up to this point, there was some rumor, but there wasn't definitive documentation in the record as to what the situation was. That some of the letter from John Marvin is only dated today. So this is new information. The board had to make sure, before it takes any definitive steps, the board has to make sure that it has its facts right.
Okay.
And the board also has to make sure that it respects the due process rights of the applicant. So yes, the board's proceeding very carefully on this. And at some point, they may have to make a decision about, if there's no answer, that this application isn't going to hang around indefinitely, but everything has to go step by step.
What does tabling actually mean?
It means we will not be taking it up next month or the next month until information comes back that allows us to deem the application complete.
It means that it's just going to be frozen in the review at the point that it's at the moment, and the board's not going to proceed further.
Charlie, do we have anything?
Most of the information that I have spoken to is really between our group and the Botskis, and not really a planning board issue.
Because I thought we proceeded with something that would have shown that there was no access.
No,
We're only acting
we know
on
that
the
it's not their
Okay.
issue, it's not their problem.
I think that one of the things that we wanted to do, and one of the reasons that we wanted to, in other words, in my memo to the board, I acknowledged that, for want of a better term, that there were rumors that were about that Red Wing didn't have access to the property. But one of the things that the board needed to do, again, in terms of being careful, is to make sure, access, as everyone understands it, isn't always access as the lawyers understand it. And we wanted to make sure that we heard from the lawyer who was representing the Labatskis, who took a look at, in the chain of title, and tried to see if there were documents that were out there that would create some kind of right of access. So that was part of the investigation that the board needed to undertake in order to figure out what the facts are.
Yeah, may I jump in, just because it deals with, I sort of jumped into it real quick.
As long as you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Charles Wessler. Yes, yeah. It's more to do with us, but it might interest you guys. It might interest, I don't know. But we did a title search through a company in Albany and down here in Dutchess County. And they did an exhaustive thing, and we couldn't come up with anything of any kind that demonstrated any written or frankly, anything that referred to any access or easement of any description to Red Wing by not only the Labattis, but anybody in the last 30 years.
Did you submit that title search to the board?
We should do that.
Should we do that?
We can only act on things that...
Sure, okay, I'll submit that. And also, just for reference, that I haven't spoken to our group yet, which some members are here, but we're talking, we've engaged attorneys up also, and over the last few weeks, they've been looking into this also, and frankly, Red Wing doesn't really, they probably think in some alternate universe that they can sue us, and Labatskis, I mean, not us. But in fact, they can, and we as a group will defend them. But they're not defend against Red Wing suing. But we will prevail, just so everybody knows.
So the only thing I would say to you is that you have to remember, I think that that Melody's point is one to remember for you and for any members of the public, and that is that the planning board can only take action with regard to information that's in the record before them.
Okay.
So that if there are documents, if there are statements by attorneys, if there are any other kinds of things like that, in order for the board to take that material into consideration, it has to be submitted.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Yeah, it's okay to get it tomorrow for the record, right?
Unless you need it right now.
No, you have to formally submit it. We're not going to sit here tonight and look at it, but as these things evolve, if you think they're pertinent to our discussions regarding this application, you should forward it on to the planning board.
Great.
You know, following the advice of your own attorneys, you know, you should be engaging your own services.
Yes, of course.
Under their direction. Okay, I have two more people here. You do.
I just have a very short comment.
And your name, please?
I'm Teresa Velarde, and I live on White Schoolhouse Road. The only thing I wonder about, I mean, I understand about due process, and I understand about the fact that if the recommendations that Mr. Lyons made took place, you would be freezing the I guess request for permit until more information was discovered or brought forth. But this is also an issue that deeply concerns everyone who lives on the road. So the point is, what virtue would there be in postponing it and having it hang and hang and hang, and we don't have any satisfaction or even, you know, at this point, participation in knowing what's going to be going on. And it does have a tremendous impact on our lives. I think that I understand the planning board can't change that, can't change the zoning, can't change anything about the road, but still, I think participating this way just drags out this, basically what it seems like now is an argument over a piece of property, which it's not. This is a much larger argument. And I think the anxiety and the ways in which we have been responding to all of these proposals and events comes from the fact that we know, of course, by implication and by what Red Wing says off the cuff, that their plans are much larger. So stopping this here becomes important. And you can give him due process, but still can continue continue the hearing, so to speak. I think freezing it means that everybody loses interest in it. Anyway, that's it.
Of course, you know, were they to come in with additional information and were we to reopen the public hearing, there would be the whole public process of notification. You would not be left out
No, I understand
of the ongoing. I just want to assure you of that.
And I think the other point that, I understand what you're saying, that, you know, the board has to follow the law and has to follow certain steps. And I think the other thing that the board needs to do is the board needs to remain cognizant that this special use permit is just about the sub-aqueous mining application.
And you know, in fairness to the board, we received this, you know, beautifully prepared document from John just today. So
I apologize for that, but we just got John Marvin's letter.
We just got John Marvin's letter. He's turned around a recommendation to the planning board that we'll discuss in a minute as Art reads it. So it's fair to let the planning board members really have some time with this document to understand it and get their head around what's being said here. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Carl Duncanberg. My family's lived on Ballenbecker Road for about 35 years. Two quick things. The first is, and I certainly don't want to be misconstrued as trying to rush the planning board at all, and that seems maybe the impression that we're giving, but and if this has been answered already, forgive me, but what would the eventual timetable be if Red Wing submits nothing, let's say, for 2 months, 3 months, 4? Is there a point at which there's precedent in this type of case where you would close the application?
I'll turn to my consultants here.
Well, if the board determines that this information is necessary in order for the application to be complete, which is necessary for them to process the application, if that information continues to remain missing, then the application will probably have to be denied.
Okay, so at some point, you mentioned this month or next month nothing happened, but there would be a point at some point where we would have an answer about this because, as Teresa stated, it is really hanging over all of our heads, as I'm sure you understand, but this could really change our quality of life in a major way, and to have this hanging over our heads is a big deal, particularly for a lot of us whose houses have been here for decades prior to this mine's existence. My other quick question was, I've been hearing a lot, if we skip forward for a second, let's say, God forbid, Red Wing does find an access point to the property and you're deciding about special use permit at that point. I've heard a lot about what the planning board does not have a legal right to say no to, basically, and that is because there's a mining overlay here, because there was a mine there in the past, that basically you would have to permit the mining to continue in one way or another to some degree. And I just want to make sure that it's understood and that everyone's considering the fact that this mining overlay district does exist, but it's surrounded by residential properties. And to think that even at the numbers that Mr. Doherty, the president of Red Wing, has admitted in terms of numbers of trucks and how this will change the landscape of the area, and if we're even forgetting the immense environmental impact for the entire town of this project, that our quality of life will really be changed. And I just hope that by the same token that Red Wing is going to receive consideration because they're in a mining district, you will consider that we hope to have the right to quietly enjoy our properties for, as I said, that have all existed for many, many years before this ever happened. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Steve Botsky. Some of this might be a little redundant from all that other stuff, but there's some other new stuff here. With the birth of our grandson, we're now a 5-generation family on White Schoolhouse Road. In fact, just a few years from being a centennial-owned property. The Lubotsky family has lived close to 100 years on our farm. The house and barn stood since before the Revolutionary War. That is history. Having verbal permission to go through our property for 20 years should not be considered historic. Having hundreds of trucks a day going through our historic property would force us and our son Gregory, whose house is next to ours, to sell or abandon our home. Red Wing will cry that, that this is their livelihood. This is their livelihood. Well, what about the family that has lived there for 100 years? We still operate farm there. Up until this year, we farm produce, and we still have our Christmas tree farm. A few weeks ago, there was a letter. My wife has copies of it. Two letters in the Observer. And if you have not read them, you should. And it would be a huge wake-up call for anyone still on the fence as to whether Rhinebeck should allow this expansion. The first letter was by Bill Jeffway, and he stated that Red Wing Sand and Gravel bought what was a local mine in Elizaville in 2002. He stated that the size and scale of trucking became industrial overnight. County and state officials got involved because the risks were too great. Red Wing seemed to be deaf to their local concerns. And that was on a county road. The rest of the letter you can read because we were going to provide copies. The second letter was from Janice Potter, a resident of Red Hook. She stated that the noise, filth, and constant dangerous traffic made life in her home of 15 years untenable. She had to sell her home in 15 years at a significant loss. Also provided her letter. This is not a letter about us, though. This is about our neighbors. Between 308 and Slate Quarry, White Schoolhouse Road, there are 39 homes. How many will suffer the same fate as Mrs. Potter? The answer should be 0. Red Wing will also say that it won't be hundreds of trucks. When we talked about the number of trucks, Red Wing waffled and said, maybe about 60 trucks a day. I personally spoke to a couple of drivers who truck gravel, and from what we've been told by these experienced professionals, expect hundreds of trucks a day. One of them stated that he personally trucks 12 loads a day from Elizabeth. That's one man, one truck, 12 trips in, 12 trips out. That's 24 trips from one guy. Everybody can do the math and knows what goes in must come out. So where does that leave us? The town has complete authority over truck routes. The answer should be simple. Reduce weight limits on all town roads to 3 tons. Allow laden trucks for local delivery only. That includes Mr. Vonderleith's mine as well. I would hope that Rich has started doing his due diligence and is in the process of moving his entry to Slate Quarry Road. Loaded trucks do not belong on rural roads. It's just a matter of time before tragedy strikes. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes?
Point of order question. Could you clarify for us the order of events here? Because it seems to me that the access...
Could you come up here so we can all hear you and introduce yourself, please?
My name is Terrence Boyle, and I'm citizen of Rhinebeck. I live on River Road. This is just a question for a procedure relating to your statement. Has Red Wing been asked for a draft environmental impact statement by any of the neighbors, and did they comply with that yet?
Just been asked by the DEC.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
They've been asked by the DEC to present this.
And that doesn't exist yet.
No, it does exist. They presented it.
They presented it, but they haven't presented the access
Right.
yet, right? So after the access, wouldn't there be another hearing then at which a draft environmental impact statement would be requested?
It's the DEC that handles the environmental review of the mining operation. And so Red Wing's already been in front of DEC seeking their permit for the mine. It is based on the access route that is proposed in the special use permit application. But, and I believe DEC's already concluded its environmental review on this application.
Yes.
And issued the permit.
That was what I wanted to know. Do you think that they have?
They have.
No, they have.
They have, and they have issued the
We
permit.
have a letter.
Their permit.
So the access is the only thing pending?
Well, then there's a special use permit required from the town, and that's what we're talking about here. Red Wing needs 2 permits. They need to get their DEC permit, and they need to get a permit from Rhinebeck. I've got their DEC permit, and they're trying to get their permit.
The order of that. Thank you.
Other, yes,
I just
sir.
want to add one more thing.
Okay.
By the way, I realize this discussion is really all about whether or not there's access through the Lobatsky property, and that's kind of what you guys are establishing in this conversation. I just wanted to go on about what Steve had said just a moment ago about that there's access or hasn't been, or historical or non-historical. The truth of the matter is, and I've said this many times, it's yes, Steve was very generous to a friend of his to say, yes, you can use this road, and when it becomes something that I'm really uncomfortable with, I'm going to cut it off. And that's just the way it is. And the mining situation 15 years ago, tell me I'm wrong, by the way, and 10 years ago, and today is completely different than the mining situation that will exist if Red Wing is allowed to mine this area. It'll become, I'm using this not hyperbolically, but it'll be 50 times more activity and noise and all the things that come along with that. So it's really not fair to say there's a historic thing, because A, that doesn't matter, and B, it's a totally different history, because it'll change everything. Do you know what I mean? That's all.
Other comments? Planning board comments? Art?
Picking up simply on
John,
John's...
anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to pick up simply on John Lyon's advice to the board. The advice being not to move to disapprove at this point in time, but to provide the opportunity for potentially further input by Red Wing, but to table at this point in time. A simple motion by the board might be like this. Upon advice of Planning Board Attorney John Lyons, as set forth in his attached memo of June 2nd, 2014, the Planning Board hereby declares the applications by Red Wing Properties, Inc. for special use permit and site plan approval in the matter of a 9-acre subaqueous mine site at 234-236 White Schoolhouse Road to be incomplete due to a lack of demonstration of site access, and thus tables consideration of this application.
Sounds good to me.
The only possibility, and it's something that Melody mentioned to me, should the planning board also include a further statement, in doing so, the planning board advises the vice chairman, the vice chairperson, to notify New York State DEC of this circumstance. Add that.
Sounds good to me.
All right, do I have a motion? You have a recommendation from your planning board consultant. Somebody like to make that motion?
I can,
Oh, someone else, sir? I'm sorry.
This will be very quick. I think as you've written it, is very good, but could there be some language in there about time, some sort of a deadline before some action will be taken? How much time would be fair?
Do you think you're in a position to set a deadline right now?
In terms of your advice to the board, basically, is that the application is incomplete until the information that's called for in your memo is provided.
I mean, I think the other thing, by the way, is that the applicant should be notified of
Yes, of course.
besides DEC, but, I mean, if you want to put a time limit on it this evening, you can
What
act
what
and
would
do
you
that
consider to be a
separately.
reasonable time?
6 calendar months, less than that?
I think 6 months is a realistic.
They were first asked to produce this information in March, am I right?
Right.
So when would 6 months be from the date of that request?
Well, you want to say 6
Okay.
months from the
That would
March
be into September, which would be like, what, 3 months from now? 4 months from now? 90 days, 120 days? Tables this application for a period of X number of days?
Yeah. I mean, you have to decide what figure you're comfortable with. 60 days from today would give the applicant 2 months. That shorter time period would also recognize that they've already been asked for the information and haven't come forward with it.
That only catches 2 meetings of this board.
We've been working on 6 months, as Jesse points out, and if we're going to go back to that March date, then I'm comfortable with 6 months from
From
March,
the March date.
which is when the request was made to produce documentation.
It's up to the board. Certainly
Board members?
something you can do.
Jesse? Sharon, what do you guys think?
Before we make a decision on that, what about if an extension is asked for by the applicant? Do we have to write that, have to weave that into the motion?
I think you always have an opportunity to reconsider that if you want
Okay.
to.
I just want to be
And
sure
I think
we...
it would depend on what kind of, what were the reasons for the extension, and, I mean, right now, given the way the facts are laid out, I mean, there's really very little, they're either going to get permission or they're not.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if they don't get permission, they develop an alternative access, that becomes a new application
That's
For an
correct.
amended application.
or an amended application.
Someone have
But
a
we'll be going back
calendar,
to square one.
does someone have a calendar as to what the date is of the third Monday of September?
And by the way, they're going to have to amend
Is it-
their DEC application as well.
Exactly.
That ends up
Which is probably will happen immediately upon this board's notification of these.
15th.
15th. So that would be tabling consideration of this application until September 15th, 2014, which infers that it moves back to the agenda at that point in time if they haven't done something in the interim, and that would likely be the other motion at that point.
Right.
Leslie Duncanberg, 15 Mullenhead Road. Is there no precedent or rule that deals with when incomplete applications die?
Not really.
No.
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 We're setting them down.
Okay. You have a
Want me to
resolution?
read it one more time?
Read it one more time.
Upon advice of Planning Board Attorney John Lyons, as set forth in his attached memo of June 2nd, 2014, the Planning Board declares the applications by Red Wing Properties Incorporated for special use permit and site plan approval in the matter of a 9-acre subaqueous mine site at 234-236 White Schoolhouse Road to be incomplete due to a lack of demonstration of site access, and thus tables consideration of this application until September 15th, until September 15th, 2014, or until not later than?
Because the applicant
Yeah.
may have it tomorrow morning.
Until not later than September 15th, 2014. In doing so, the planning board advises the vice chairman to so notify the applicant and New York State DEC of this circumstance.
And provide a copy of the resolution
Yeah.
to vote.
Okay, Sharon had
Provide
it.
a copy of the document.
Sharon made the motion, second.
Second,
Woody? We don't need to poll the board, do we?
Please do.
Please do. Woody?
aye.
All right. Jesse? Aye. Sharon? Aye. And I'll vote aye.
And that was Woody and Sharon. Right?
Sharon, your motion reads second.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll consider it tabled. So, thank you very much. Thank you all for your input. And there are copies here.
Thank you very much, by the way, guys. Thank you, Ray.
The newspaper.
Not yet. I hope so. I'll look for the email.
Oh, I asked Melody if there was one. I thought maybe it missed one.
Yeah, not yet. I'm running a little behind.
I haven't found too many 48-hour days either.
John, I'll see you. We'll see you Wednesday. Feel better.
Should he be here for the next goat rodeo? What? Should he, John, be here for the next goat rodeo?
He's got some house to do.
Oh, okay.
No, he said probably tomorrow there will be.
What?
There will be a modified draft probably tomorrow.
From?
John, on the MIO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna do, we'll talk later. Just talk to me about what I need.
These are copies for the board members?
No, I
Okay. What I'm going to do is close the door.
Close the door, please. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm delighted. Okay, our next public hearing, Carolyn Marks Blackwood, Grinnell Street subdivision plat, special use permits and site plan presentation and planning board acceptance as may be warranted of amended applications and supporting documents as discussed on May 19th, 2014, and continuation from April 7th, May 5th, and May 19th, 2014, of combined public hearing heretofore conducted an application for subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101, subdivision of land, and applications for special use permits and site plan review and approval under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning to authorize the consolidation of two parcels into a single parcel totaling .61 acres at 64 Grinnell Street in the Rhinecliff Hamlet and Rhinecliff Overlay Districts, the Hudson River National Historic Landmarks District, and the town's LWRA, and both renovation and expansion of the existing dwelling to 4,096 square feet and construction of a new garage, okay, with second floor intended for use as a detached accessory dwelling unit being a type 1 action under seeker in a matter of pending application before the ZBA. I believe tonight the first order of business is that there are amended applications being for both special use permit and site plan. In other words, I know, but the planning board hasn't accepted them.
They haven't been
so
accepted by the board.
You're submitting them tonight to the planning board. One is the subdivision consolidation is now 3 lots, and the second floor on the garage is no longer there.
And the garage is not to be taken down.
Not to be taken down, it's to stay as is.
And the site plan's been modified.
And the site plan has been modified to represent this, and anything else that's been...
Landscaping,
Landscaping?
wall, et cetera.
Okay.
You want me to-
Yeah, why don't, yes, because it's a public hearing, that way the public will know what the modifications are.
I think this is maybe the 4th public hearing on this, and we've gone through everything in exhausting detail. As of the last meeting, there were only, we had addressed neighbors' concerns. The biggest problems, the biggest concerns were from the neighbors and their views, and those have all been addressed, I believe, satisfactorily. The issue of the garage apartment was important, especially to the neighbors to the south. I always get this wrong, to the south. And so eventually we agreed to not include that garage apartment. Another concern was that whereas we had agreed to consolidate all 3 parcels so that the major view could be protected in perpetuity, the question of how to make it really in perpetuity came up, because if we just consolidated them, we might have in the future had the option of, say, taking down the garage and building another accessory building on the 3rd parcel, the vacant parcel. So Carolyn has gone into negotiation with Winnicke Land Trust to put a conservation easement on on the 3rd parcel so that nothing can be built there in perpetuity. And I just want to add to give you an idea that this is not a small thing. You all probably know that parcel, and you probably all agree with me that it's the most valuable vacant parcel in Rhinebeck. It's a very valuable piece of land. And Carolyn is giving up the rights to build on it in perpetuity. When she went to Winnicke, they said to her, well, we can do this conservation easement, but you should also make sure you consolidate all 3 lots. Because with this conservation easement on it, that currently very valuable piece of land will be worthless. And it would be conceivable that in the future, rather than pay tax on it, the person who owns it would just abandon it because it has no value. So I want to give you the sense of the financial sacrifice that she's making. It's considerable. The other thing that was outstanding was an archaeological study, and Carolyn has gone into contract with Hartgen Archaeological Associates. They're coming later this week to the site to begin their study. What else? I've submitted we've discussed in great detail all of these aspects. The one that was remaining as of the last public meeting was the hedge itself and whether it was too high and whether it could be softened in some way. And it was suggested that a landscape technique called stacking, which means putting layers of landscape material at different heights together so that instead of just having a stark edge, it has a graduated profile. So that was suggested as something that would help and that the height could be lowered. So we looked at that, and in the drawings that I've submitted since then, we have added the stack of planting, and we have lowered the hedge. Originally it was going to be 11 feet. We can lower it to 9 feet, and I can show you why that is. I can give you these drawings. But this is I'm going to leave some of these drawings, but I'll give them to you now. This is a section from the street through Carolyn's property over to the bluff. And it shows what a person standing, what the sight line would be from a person standing on Grinnell Street, looking toward the river across Carolyn's property. And I was just looking at this while we were waiting, and I realized that what I've written out here is confusing. It says, when you look at this closely, you'll see that the hedge says 9 feet minimum. The way I've drawn it at 8 feet, and the reason I wrote 9 feet is because the way I've drawn it indicates that 8 feet is not enough. But it's confusing the way I do that.
Thank you.
I think the only other new thing that's on the site plan, we're putting up a low stone wall across the parcel, the north parcel that's to remain vacant. I wanted to point out that it says on there 2 feet maximum, but that land slopes from the street, so that relative to Grinnell Street, it's only one foot maximum above Grinnell Street. I think that would be a concern of yours, John. Other than that, everything we've discussed, everything else.
Today we received, and I'm not going to read it, an 18-page letter. I hope all town planning board members have it, and it's in the public record for... Okay. Today we received a letter from Steve Hutchins, who lives in Rhinecliff. It's an 18-page letter, basically in which he discusses his concerns with the project. I hope all planning board members have it. I was able to read it today, but I think that it's a little expecting a lot for everyone to have read it. I don't know if you have seen it. It's in the public record now. I'm sorry?
Is he in the room?
Is he in the room?
Yes.
Let him speak.
Do you want to speak to your letter?
Not really.
To the letter?
Yes, well, I don't know if you want to read it.
If you don't want to read the letter into the record.
But I thought you might wish to discuss the points that you raise in the letter. It's the only correspondence we've received since our last meeting on this particular proposal.
Well, my name is Steve Hutchins. I live in Rhinecliff on Grinnell Street, a couple houses to the south of the Blackwood property. I've lived in Rhinecliff since 1987. Admittedly, I wasn't paying a lot of attention over the past couple of months to the proposals for the development of the Blackwood property. I was busy teaching at New York University, where I'm a professor. But my neighbor, Kathy Flynn, was very concerned about what was going on. She's been going to these meetings. She talked to my wife, got her to come to a meeting or two. And a couple of weeks ago, I started paying much more attention to what was going on. And I became very, very concerned about this proposal. So at NYU, I'm a literature teacher, but I also, for the past, since 1990 or so, teach a course called Sense of Place, which actually grew out of my interest in how places manifest, the character of a place is manifested in the built environment, and how the forces of change sometimes undermine this particular character. I actually got interested in teaching this because of development projects that threatened Rhinecliff many, many years ago. Our project was sitting right there back in 1990 when this was all going on. So for the past couple of weeks, my semester ended at NYU, so I had some time. I went to the planning board files and the zoning board files and started studying what was in these files. I watched the the videos of your meetings on YouTube. I studied the zoning code, particularly the Article 6 on the Rhinecliff overlay, and I looked at the documents that Mr. Mensch had submitted, particularly his response to how the project fulfills the overlay objectives, the 12 objectives of the overlay. And quite frankly, I just could not believe that the board was about to approve anything that resembled this project. It seems that much of the response over the past few weeks has been to make modifications to accommodate the particular interests of the adjacent neighbors, particularly their sight lines and their view shed. But very little consideration had been given to the impact on the hamlet as a whole and how the project does or does not fulfill the criteria of the overlay district. So I wrote this very long letter, and I apologize for its length, but it seemed very important to be thorough in these matters because nothing in the docket, in the file, suggested that this kind of thorough review had taken place. So my concerns were those similar to those that have been raised already, and there's no need to reiterate them, but it has to do with the way the overlay district is supposed to ensure that any new construction that takes place in the hamlet preserves the hamlet's architecture and pattern of design, continues its existing character, improves the visual characteristics of the hamlet with landscaping that enhances views to the Hudson, uses traditional building materials, designs roofs sympathetic with the vernacular architecture, limits the size of buildings to prevent oversized homes that don't fit with the historic character of Rhinecliff. In order to explore how the characteristics of the proposal fit or did not fit with those criteria, I did things like build a database of the 165 houses in the overlay district using the tax maps available to Dutchess County. So I could see how many houses were historic, of what vintage, how many square foot the houses were, what kind of footprints they had, all of those sorts of things. So the report is filled with all kinds of data about that subject. And in short, the house is completely oversized at 4,000 square feet. It's twice the size of the current house, more than twice the size of the average house in Rhinecliff, twice the size of the house in Grinnell Street, where more of the larger houses are located. It's totally out of proportion. The hedge is 75 feet long, 8 or something feet tall. It blocks the view from everyone who walks by on the river. This view has been characterized by people in this room as a sliver, nothing to worry about. That is totally false. Those of you who went over there and looked at what this view is like, it's an important part of the view, and it's not as if there's one view on the south and one view on the north. It's all one view. So I just was really, really upset, and hence the 18 pages. Two other matters, and then I'll stop because there's a lot of other people who want to say things. One, a few weeks ago, the board, Chairman Trimble suggested to the board that it might be helpful to hire a visual simulation expert. And the board basically blew this off, and we thought that might be a really good idea. So we contacted George James, the person that you had discussed hiring, and had two very helpful conversations with him. And he explained exactly what he would do. He would use CAD to build a model of the house and the landscaping and everything else. And he would actually be able to show in a 3D kind of way what the house would look like, what the pavilion would look like, and what the landscaping would look like, and what the view would look like from any place that we wanted to see it. You could see it from any place on the street, you could see it from anybody's house, you could see it from the river, you could see it from anywhere, and you could do the before and after comparing photographs. And he can even do motion if you wanted. So we talked about hiring him ourselves, and we checked into whether there'd be any conflict of interest since he has other work with the town. And we are prepared to do that. But he told us that that was rather ridiculous and that it would be much more appropriate for the town to hire him. So I would like to encourage the board to revisit your decision not to hire him. In fact, you didn't really even vote on that. I think it would be helpful for someone to put forward a resolution about hiring him so that we can see who's voting for this and who's voting against this. It doesn't cost a lot of money. He threw out a number, a couple $1,000s. This is a project that's going to cost probably over $2 million, have long-lasting impacts on the hamlet, a couple of $1,000s for people to see what it looks like, seems like nothing. He observed that he thought, but he wasn't positive, that the drawings that you've been presented were hand drawings, not CAD drawings. So he thought that many times the designer has a vision of what the project will look like that's represented in those drawings, but sometimes the designer is surprised by what the CAD and 3D modeling illustrates because it is a scientific, mathematically determined view of what's going on. I know this at the discussion of whether to hire him, Mr. Mensch said that he would only produce a subjective representation. I asked him about that. He said it would be anything but subjective. It would be actual 3D representations. Your interpretation of those drawings on photographs might be subjective, but the way he makes them was anything but subjective. And he also suggested, since it would take him some time to do this, and for many other reasons, I would also encourage finally that the board keep the public hearing open. We have been talking to people in Rhinecliff, and there's a lot of people in town, surprisingly, perhaps, that are first becoming aware of what's going on. The initial notifications went to a particular list of neighbors. I don't know how it was decided who would get notification and who wouldn't, but we were surprised to find out how many people in town don't know what's going on, and so we resurrected the rhinecliff.org website where we could put the materials from the docket online so people could look at this stuff. And I encourage people to go to the website. There's articles on the website. People can express their opinions. They can write comments. It's not trying to take a particular position. It's just trying to be a place where this information can be out there. I've written for it myself. I tried to be somewhat objective about it, but obviously I have strong opinions about it. And I'll put my 18-page letter will be on there tomorrow, so anybody wants to take a look at it there, as well as everything else that comes in tonight that's available to put on the website. So sorry for the long letter, and I hope I didn't speak too long now. If anybody has a question or something, I guess I could answer it.
Anyone from the planning board have a question for Mr. Hopkins?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Yes.
This business about hiring somebody who's aesthetic. I have allergies. This business about hiring somebody who's aesthetic. When we live in a little town that has at least 7 artists that paint regularly the landscape. Betsy Jackaruso, I must have painted 30 of those landscapes, maybe 100. You've all bought them. I've donated them all over the place to your things. Why are you going to hire someone when they're all of us that you should be speaking to and not spend it? You want $2,000? I'll produce $2,000. I'd be glad to do it for you. But I guess the point is, I'd like to say something that's beyond this business of an esthetician coming in and doing something like that. First of all, again, I painted this landscape a lot. I never painted from the spot the gentleman is talking about. There's nothing to look at. We go 20 feet down and I paint over there many, many times. But if you'd let me read my little letter, if that's okay, because I'm not good at this. My name is Joseph Maresca and I live in Rhinecliff at 17 Loftus Road. And I'm here tonight to speak about the proposed new building that Carolyn Blackwood is proposing to build on Grinnell Street. on property she bought 8 years ago and has kept open and available for all to see since the day she bought it. I have been listening to the council for months now, I guess, or weeks, weighing matters of taste and legal rights, and taking issue with any number of design elements that might or might not make someone happy. But then we live in a world where not everyone can be happy with everybody else's solution. In a world where reason prevails, everybody has the ability to voice their opinion, but that doesn't necessarily enforce it, since its taste and style are a subjective issue. Carolyn, who is a friend of mine, by the way, so I'm not totally unbiased about this, who is a friend of mine, and trying to stay within a somewhat arbitrary set of standards and rules and regulation, has bent over backwards, not only to be within these standards, but enable the town, as well as Rhinecliff, to enjoy and continue enjoying the wonderful open site she has bought and has maintained for some time at great expense, considering the various costs of taxes, etc. You all know what that is. She could have flipped the lot properly, but she loves it too much, as I do, to have ever even thought of such a thing. I myself do not find it at all disturbing that the area between her garage and the current building, which in the future is going to be cut in half, makes any difference, since anybody's going to walk a few yards up north, as it goes, to see the river spread out like a postcard. Not from that little sliver, and it is a little sliver, otherwise I would have painted it, believe me. This wonderful postcard is really compliments of Carolyn and her generosity towards the town. I think it's within her right to build a house on the lot, but she's preferred not to do it because she, as an artist, respects and loves this view, as I do. I really do. I live in Rhinecliff because I love it. And I love the eccentricity of our town. There's nothing historic about it. Those are little buildings. They've been changed and modified. We don't live in colonial Williamsburg, and I wouldn't want to. I love that Susan C. built something that's interesting. And I love the people down on Morton Road who built a house that looks like a silver cup piece of bread. It's fascinating. It gives us character and style. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject. I'm beginning to find this whole situation that's happening here as one based on personal taste and assumptions, rather than the realities of 21st century design and living accommodation. She wants a flat roof. It's her business what shape her roof is. And if you wanted a pointed roof so badly, you're going to lose more of your skyscape. It's her business what shape her roof is. Does it conform or relate to anything else? Will depend on whose relationships one's desiring to use, as things change, and so do taste and relationships. Said that already. When one thinks seriously, and this is the crux of my matter, when one thinks really seriously, there would probably have been 2 or 3 houses now on that property had anyone else other than Carolyn bought it. Believe me. 8 years ago, but that's not the issue. The issue is that she's generously leaving everything else open, and all she's asking for is some darn privacy in her living room. What she is giving us for that piece of planting or wall is the real money shot of her property, a few yards further, where all of a sudden you have almost 100 feet of clear, obstructed river. So my feeling is we should be thankful she isn't a developer or someone who wanted to make a lot of money off of the wonderful site. She loves it, and we do too, and she wants to keep it beautiful. We're so lucky she hasn't decided to build a house for spec on the property. I would love to have a house over there, and if she would sell me the property, it wouldn't take me 10 seconds to try and build on it. If I could afford that piece of property, it's a very valuable and wonderful spot. And I'd build there in 10 minutes. And as a good friend of Carolyn's, I wish she would sell it to me. And I wish I could afford to build on it. And there goes your view, period. Well, that's basically all I have to say, except I lived on Grinnell Street. I lived in John's house for maybe 4 years. I don't think a 2-foot wall is going to interfere with him, and he's a friend of mine too. And Miss Pilgrim's house, I think by Carolyn cutting her house in half as it stands, she's getting even a better view. So I guess what I want to say is, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Karen Sullivan. I live in Kelly Street in Rhinecliff and around the corner from this property. And I just have 2 points. The first is that I know this property very well. I have a dog and I walk him up there, at least once a day. I run up around there about 4 or 5 times a week. It's the most beautiful view, not only in the hamlet, but I believe in the town. It is extremely, distinctive. Not just because you can see the river and because you can see the mountains, but it's because of the undulation of the property. It's because of the kind of the angles you get when you're coming off Kelly Street and turning around onto Grinnell. It's because of the sweep and the expanse of the property. It's a magnificent view. As I say, I believe it is the best view in the entire town of Rhinebeck. And it's a real treasure, for anyone who walks that street and is familiar with it. Every day I see many people, there also walking their dogs or just walking and also kind of, enjoying the view. I'm very grateful that, Carolyn has preserved it, for all of this time. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I would like to have it continue to be preserved. Could it be worse? Could the plan be worse? Yes, I'm sure it could be. But is the plan going to make it worse than it is now? Yes, and also there's no question about that either. So when I heard about this plan, I was extremely disappointed, and it would really be, have an impact upon my quality of life, not to have this view, kind of every day in my life. And I speak also for the many other people I know when I see every day kind of walking on that street and chatting and enjoying the view. The second point I would like to make is that Rhinecliff, I think all of us, a lot of us are here from the hamlet. It's a wonderful place to live, and I think one of the things that we enjoy about it so much is that there's a very strong sense of community, of openness. There is an eclectic architecture, kind of one house is sometimes very different than the other, so a lot of the houses actually are twin houses, so there's a diversity in the architecture, but there tends to be a community orientation towards the architecture. A very, very high percentage of the houses in Rhinecliff, I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's certainly something like 75% have front porches. They open up into the community. They welcome people symbolically, there's a breakdown of private and public space. People kind of sit on their porches and chat there. There's a beautiful little, house that was just built, kind of across the street from this house recently, where there's a lovely front porch. The couple is always there. You say hello as you walk by. So we're talking about a movement, towards an architecture that's not a front porch, that's an 8-foot hedge, that's kind of a barricade, creating a fortress, between the property and, the community that surrounds it. So, I mean, for those who, I know Joseph has a different report of this than I do, but, there is something that gives you a very different report of property that's like that. That kind of shuts you out instead of symbolically opening you up into it. So, those, as I said, those are the 2 points that I'd like to make. A, that, this is going to very seriously affect the quality of life of the many people, including from the hotel, and other people kind of in Rhinecliff who walk there, around there every day and enjoy the view. And B, that I think it does change the mood of the hamlet in a very important property in a way that is not good for the community as a whole.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public care to speak? Yes.
Hi, my name is Andrew Shepard, and I was an active participant in the comprehensive plan, I'm sure you recall, including serving on the committee for Rhinecliff zoning. These things are not taking place in a vacuum. We discussed these things over and over and over again There was a suggestion to make Rhinecliff quarter-acre zoning. It was rejected. We kept it at 1-acre zoning. We set very specific limit on the size of homes and talked about the problems because Rhinecliff is so segmented that we could potentially face a time where people are buying multiple properties, combining them, and building much larger homes. And this is what we wanted to avoid the whole time. David Antone and I kept bringing this up over and over and over again. The front porches, that was a big deal. We spent a lot of time on this. I'm a little concerned that the comp plan has passed by so long ago that people aren't fresh with what was in it. And the LWRP and everything else, it seems sort of like it's being chucked out the window. I mean, the size is way, way out of proportion. And as a precedent, you're going to face more and more of this where people come in, want to do big projects, have deep pockets, have lawyers on staff. You're going to have to draw the line somewhere. The longer you take to draw that line, the harder it is to fight these things. We talked in the comp plan about different types of communities that we needed in this town. And there are plenty of estate properties, a lot of them with river views. There's always been that complementary relationship between the hamlet and the surrounding big estates. It's wonderful. But as Rhinecliff becomes more and more desirable, we're going to lose because people are going to come in and build much larger homes, the taxes are going to go up. I want to stay there. I want to continue to participate in the community, like so many of my neighbors do all the time. It's a vibrant, wonderful place. There are people who enjoy some affordability there, who always have. And this was really, really clear. We discussed this over and over again. The size of the houses should not exceed the cap that was put in the comp plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak? Yes, Michael.
My name's Michael Nicola. If my wife were here, she'd tell me to shut up and sit down. I was also at a lot of those meetings about comp plan and discussing a Rhinecliff overlay. And one of the things that was explicitly discussed was that overlay zoning was not supposed to interfere with how houses looked. It was supposed to talk about massing of what you could see. It was one of the things that David said, and that was agreed upon, and everyone who was in that room, was that we're not looking for pointy roofs. That flat roofs were okay. And that it's an eclectic group of houses in that hamlet now. There's a lot of different size buildings, and that was one of the attractive things about the hamlet. So I'm not refuting what Andrew said, but I want to add to it. Those things were also said and also agreed on. So you got to ask yourselves whether you're making a subjective style decision and applying it to someone else's desires for their home, and whether that's okay. I'm very familiar with the site. The first place I lived when I moved here was in John's house.
A lot of people lived there. I think
we had a whole commune.
I think it was a hotel at one point. I think it was a hotel at one point.
And I would sit across the street on the bluff overlooking the view, which is what's being preserved, and enjoying it. And there wasn't a view to the south. The garage was, that house was always set off the street and turned towards itself. It's kind of down in a little weird pocket. The garage was the most prominent part of the house to the street. So when someone comes up before you, and you don't maybe like their design, but they're offering to preserve the thing that you like the most about that spot up there, which is that expansive view to the south of the property. It's a huge concession. I don't think it's being talked about enough, so I wanted to bring it up.
My name is Cynthia Phillips, and I have lived in Rhinecliff since 1978. And I came here, I came here because I needed to be near the railroad station because I was doing freelance writing. I still do freelance writing. And the train was there, and so if somebody needed something to be done in New York, I could get down there and get a job in the afternoon. My husband had died, and I was supporting my 3 children and putting them through college. I was a regional planner, and I am also a New Englander, so that I really believe in community. So that I worked steadfastly in all kinds of planning. I was here when Red Wing, I'm just very interested when Red Wing started. That's been going the whole time I've been here, I think. And, but I know how carefully, and I also wrote the history of Rhinecliff as a civic duty. And so I know a lot about Rhinecliff. And I know about the planning process. First, I'll talk about Rhinecliff. To begin with, Rhinecliff was a Dutch settlement. It was a riparian settlement. The people went around in boats, which meant they could go anywhere in the world. They knew the prices current in the Caribbean because that's where their stuff was transshipped from New York. They knew all kinds of things. They also settled it it's the 4th settlement on the river, and it was Dutch. The Dutch at that time were the most liberal people in the world. Women had their own boats. Women didn't have the boat, but women had, because most people didn't have a boat in 1686. But they weren't serfs.
Cynthia, please speak to the project itself.
Okay, well, the project itself is much too large. And it is absolutely much too large. It does not meet the requirements that the planning process that I went through in detail, every bit of it, because I was working very hard at planning at that time. And the thing was that we were to preserve the sense of place that Rhinecliff had, and that's why you have this overlay district. It's not a question. I realize that times have changed. I know that there are people who can do all kinds of things. I do not object to glass buildings at all. But I do object to the fact that this community, which is an historic community, which has all these historic overlays on it, is suddenly having a huge place put on it. 4,000 square feet is a lot of square feet, and blocking off the view, I think this is very, very foolish. And it may happen because lots of things are happening. But it shouldn't happen, and it was not in the zoning ordinance to have that happen. I went through that zoning ordinance, and I know that to be true. And I just think that we ought to think twice about it, and that the character, I don't care about pointed roofs and that sort of thing, but I do care about coverage of blocks. And this is 4,086 square feet or something like that.
It's
4,096.
4,096.
Yeah, and it is a fortress. So if that's what we want, that's what the future brings. That's what the future brings, but it wasn't what was planned in the zoning ordinance, and I think the zoning ordinance should have a great deal of attention paid to it because we paid an awful lot of money for it. Went through a lot of storm and drag, as we remember.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and also just remember this is the 4th oldest settlement on the river, and it deserves to be preserved.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Yes, Richard.
Richard Kobushansky. I live in Rhinecliff and own some other property. I think a key word that somebody mentioned was eclectic. You know, you could walk around and it's all different styles. And I mean, and if we stop, you know, we went through 250 years of not being so regulated, and we ended up with a community that we love. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me that we want to stop this project dead out. Now, if this project was in the middle of Rhinecliff, where I own some of my properties, I would say that's crazy. But it's just like the Page House to me. The Page House went from 3,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet up at the end of Hutton Street. It doesn't really affect many people. There's a lot of people say this is going to affect them. It is a sliver to the south side of that garage, where that garage is. It is nothing. What Michael said about preserving, you know, I too was on the comprehensive plan. And we loved that site so much that we actually took a photograph of it and we put it in. It was a combination of that property and John's property. John got very upset with it, but it was actually in the comprehensive plan as of what we are trying to preserve. And for Carolyn to truly give it up is a tremendous thing. She's giving it to us. She's giving it to us, in my opinion. And to the south side, again, of the house, I don't think there's much. I don't think we will see much of this project. And I think I'm totally all for it. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Someone else? Yes. Yes.
I'm Kitty Pilgrim, and I live directly across the street from Carolyn's property. I think we're talking about my view pretty much and John's view, but it's really basically the view from the front porch of my house. And so I obviously thought about it a lot, and I take into consideration all the architectural style and all those sort of points. But I have a real opinion about the view, because that's my viewpoint. And I'd like to read a letter, just because it sets out my thoughts very coherently. So, dear fellow citizens of the Hudson Valley, I'm writing to express my thoughts and feelings about the redevelopment of my neighbor Carolyn Blackwood's property on Grinnell Street, which consists of multiple lots. Many residents in the area, including myself, are concerned about preserving the historic view. I live directly across the street and purchased my house expressly for this view, which I believe adds greatly to the value of my property. Rhinecliff joggers, dog walkers, bike riders, tourists all pause at this exact spot to savor the incredible vista of the Hudson River. Carolyn Blackwood and I have had many conversations over the past years about how she plans to expand the square footage of her current residence. Therefore, when I received notification via certified letter that the new architectural plans would be submitted to the town board, I was not surprised. Most of the neighborhood residents are aware that the proposed construction requires a zoning variance for size and special approval for partial obstruction of views. Carolyn has proposed a trade-off. She agrees to leave the north lot of her property underdeveloped without any construction if the town planning board allows her to go forward with the building plans on her house and other structures. Now, in this regard, I have recently been informed that the act of combining the three lots would not rule out building another structure on the north lot per se. Even if the lots are combined, the north parcel would still remain a buildable lot, and it would take a separate legal document to protect the north lot from future development. I believe we addressed this a little earlier, but I wrote this last week. This additional document, I've been led to understand, requires action not from any individual or group of citizens, but from the town planning board. So I urge the members of the board to make all necessary arrangements to formalize this pledge. Carolyn has proposed making her pledge legally binding. On page 3 of her May 6th letter to the town of Rhinebeck's planning board, she states that her application for zoning variance has been made, quote, with the offer of a legally bound commitment that the north view will remain in perpetuity. Now, among good neighbors, a verbal pledge should be enough. Nevertheless, properties can change hands, and any new owners would not be bound by a verbal pledge. So I urge the board to take Carolyn up on her offer to make the offer of keeping the north lot open and legally binding if the application goes through. And I speak from experience on this issue. My previous residence was in the old whaling village of Sag Harbor, New York, and the historic district was very tightly zoned, but overdevelopment of the surrounding neighborhoods was rampant, and houses changed ownership frequently. And with each new owner, new plans were drawn up and submitted, and everyone had a vision of how to build their new, improved, and often bigger dream house. I moved to Rhinecliff because the scenic charm of the area is absolutely unblemished, and invasive development has not yet occurred. But I am realistic. We reside in a community that is within very easy commuting distance of New York, and future development will be proposed. But overdevelopment is preventable. I can only urge the town planning board to keep the bigger picture in mind, make sure that the quality of the view should be preserved above all else. And in summation, I think that Carolyn Blackwood's idea of keeping the view open in perpetuity is a very good one. But let's make sure that the terms regarding the north lot are defined carefully, will be legally binding for any owner, both current and future, and hopefully the transparency of this entire process as we move forward will ease the anxiety of the entire Rhinecliff community. So let's all work together to maintain one of the most beautiful and scenic views in New York State.
Thank you. Could you submit that? Yeah, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Steve?
First, I'd like to respond to, I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of that fellow who's the professor. What's your name? Steve. I wanted to respond to some of his comments. Maybe you don't realize, since you've come into this process very late, that I built a model which was provided for the public to see. And the model is by far the best way to visualize it, much better than your consultant would be able to do. And I never said that his constructions would be subjective. What I said is his evaluation would be objective, or would be subjective. I want to talk a little bit about the size of the building, since it keeps coming up again and again. Let me start by repeating something I've said several times now, that in the history of Rhinebeck, and practically in the history of zoning, square footage calculations have never included windowless basements. They never have in Rhinebeck. They never have in any project that's come up before this board until this project. And that's because of a misunderstanding in how it was written. The 2,300 square feet is called gross square footage. It should have been called habitable square footage. I spoke to Sally Mazzarella, who was, as you know, the head of the Comprehensive Plan Committee. She said they never intended to include the square footage of basements or windowless spaces in the square footage. So you're not comparing apples to apples. When you say this is a 4,000 square foot house, you're not comparing it fairly to other buildings. If you eliminate all the windowless underground space, it gets down to more like 3,100 square feet, which is still, of course, bigger than the 2,300 that is prescribed in zoning. But it's not nearly as much bigger. And we've always argued that because of the way the building is massed, and a great deal of attention was spent on how the building could be masked so that it would not appear to be a big building. The way it's masked, what you perceive as you go by it is two small buildings and a garage. The buildings that you see are about 1,100 square feet. Everything else is buried beyond the drop-off. Much of it is completely buried. You can't see it from anywhere. About 1,100 square feet of it. So just keep that in mind when people keep saying this is a huge building. It's not that huge, but it is bigger than the 2,300 square feet. But I want to emphasize that the massing of it was broke down with great consideration for the scale of the street and the neighborhood. It will not create the impression of a large building.
Is there anyone else? Yes. Okay, he has to come forward.
I also wanted to just remind everyone that I have 3 buildable lots. And I'm not making a threat, I'm just telling you that I have 3 buildable lots where I'm allowed a 2,300 square foot house, a 600 foot garage, is it?
650.
650 foot garage, and something else?
No, that's it.
That's it?
Accessory building
An accessory building that's how big?
650.
650. So, with 3 lots like that, it's approximately, I could build 3 houses on these 3 lots. And I'm not saying I want to, because I don't want to. I love it there. But what I'm trying to do is combine the 2 of the lots, and what I'm going to do on those 2 lots is much less than what I would be legally allowed to build, actually. And also the way that Steve designed it was so that there is the original house, which we're taking off a wing of, and you'll see the original restored looking house that's going to be very in keeping with, you know, a 19th century house, and then a garden. And the other thing that I'm a little confused about, and then to leave the big, beautiful view lot open forever, and I will legally do that. I will be paying taxes on it, and I will never be able to build on it. Now, if I sold this property and someone didn't have the feeling that I have for it, I wouldn't be surprised if someone looked at those 3 lots and just went ka-ching, and they would legally be able to build on those 3 lots. I love Rhinecliff. I feel very, very sad that my neighbors have written things that aren't true on that Rhinecliff.org website. It's not true. I mean, they're sort of saying that I'm going to build these 3 lots, and they took a picture of the view in the narrow space, not the open space, but the narrow space between the garage and the house. And someone actually, I think, stood on a car and took it so that it would look like a much better piece than it is, because it is so high up. It's like an aerial view, like a drone took it or something. I feel very badly that my neighbors didn't come to me to talk to me, so I could show them around and explain to them what was happening. All this leaflets were being put out in front of the post office the other day. It made me feel terrible, because I have fought for Rhinecliff in the bad times. I love Rhinecliff. I'm one of you. I'm your neighbor. You need help. I'm here for you. I don't really, it turned into something that I don't really understand, and that made me feel very sad. Any of my neighbors, if you want to talk to me about this project, I'll show you around the property and show you what's going to happen. I'd be very happy.
Rhinebeck camera?
But the way people were acting wasn't very nice. And it's hurt my feelings enormously.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm also a resident of Rhinecliff, and I had a number of comments to make about the plan at 64 Grinnell Street.
And your
I had a number of
name?
comments to make about the plan at 64 Grinnell Street. I had a couple of questions.
We just need your name, though.
Matthew Rosenberg.
Thank you.
One or two questions. One, I understand the CAB has rescinded its letter. Is that true?
The CAB, since this is an amended application for both the subdivision consolidation as well as for the site plan and special use permit, the CAB now will have another 30 days to do their consistency
So they'll do
review.
another one.
And we're probably going to also have to send it back down to the county under 239 because now it's an altered application.
And a side note, I understand that a letter was submitted that erroneously led one maybe to believe that David Anthone endorsed this project.
He has made it very clear to me that he has not endorsed this project or not endorsed it, that he has made no
He's
comment on this project whatsoever.
I just wanted
Yes.
to clear the record because that letter looked like he had endorsed it.
Yes. No, he made it very clear to me personally that he has not taken a position on this project.
That's what I thought. Okay. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to read this. I'll try and skip some of this has already been covered. First off, I think there's been a lot of talk, before I read this, of personal issues, and this is absolutely, I don't know, I don't know Carolyn very well, but I certainly, there's no personal feelings amongst the people that I know that are against this. They could be anybody. It's certainly not personal. To me, it is really hard to imagine how this proposal could qualify for a special use permit under Article 4 of the zoning code. The plan breaks what I believe to be a community covenant. It's not just about the immediate neighbors, which I understand may be satisfied. It's about the entire neighborhood, and I know that Professor Sullivan, who spoke before, was very eloquent on that. It's certainly nothing personal. Like I said, I don't know Carolyn. I had written this already. This is about the plan for the property, and as the planning board knows, a variance is a permanent change in zoning given to the property. Mrs. Blackwood just happens to be the current owner. She won't be the owner forever, we know that. And nothing about this plan for the property is compatible with its location as far as we're concerned. Unfortunately, there's also, and it was mentioned just now, there's an implicit threat that if we don't approve this plan, the applicant could build 3 houses with garages. It's sort of like a spite house, I would call it. And that really doesn't belong in the process, and I don't think the planning board should consider what alternatives they might submit when they're deciding on what this plan is. You should focus on this plan, and whatever threats might be built other than this, they should submit plans and do the LWRP and everything else for those 3 houses and those 3 garages and everything else. I also don't know that we've seen an LWRP consistency review. Is that been completed?
The CAB, the WAC now has an additional 30 days to do that since
Okay, so they
these are
haven't
amended
submitted one
applications.
already, though.
I don't recall.
They have.
No, they have not.
So I assume there is no consistency review. The reason I mention that is because...
They have not submitted anything.
Okay, and the reason I mention that is because I don't understand how one can reconcile the proposal with many of the policies outlined in the LWRP. And I'm just going to name a couple because there's 44 of them. Many of them are not applicable. But let's start with 23, and I'll quote from the policy. When considering all actions within a historic district, that would be incompatible with the objective of preserving the quality and integrity of the resource. Primary considerations are to be used in making a judgment about compatibility. Compatibility between the proposed action and the resource means that the general appearance of the resource should be reflected in the architectural style, design material, scale, proportion, composition, mass, line, color, texture, detail, setback, landscaping, and related items of proposed actions, unquote. I don't see the compatibility there. In addition, we'll go on to just one more LWRP policy, number 24, which is almost more incompatible, and that is, quote, to prevent impairment of scenic resources of statewide significance. Impairment, and I'm quoting, is identified as the irreversible modification of geologic forms. This would do that. The destruction or removal of structures. This would do that. Whenever the geologic forms or structures are significant to the scenic quality of an identified resource, which this is identified, it's on a landmark district in 10 different ways. And the addition of structures because of which siting or scale will reduce identified views, or which, because of scale, from form or materials, will diminish the scenic quality of the identified resource. Well, this would clearly diminish what is an identified view. So we believe that the proposal is not at all compatible with these and numerous other policies in the LWRP, which I won't name them all because there's too many. So as part of the scenic area statewide significance, which this is also in, The most notable views available in the scenic area of statewide significance are the panoramic views of the Hudson River, its shoreline, and the distant Catskill Mountains. And I think there's a misunderstanding here that this is only a 180-degree view shed. It's a 360-degree view shed. Our concerns should be from the water. I know it's been mentioned before. I've watched all the planning board meetings, but it should be always in the back of our heads that this isn't just what we see from the street, it's what we see from the water, it's what we see from any other part. So, quoting from the scenic area of statewide significance, the siting of structures in a manner that causes them to intrude upon, block, alter the composition of, or introduce discordant features into these views would impair the scenic quality of the SASS, unquote. Now, there are many areas of Rhinebeck where views can be blocked. There's no question. It's no big deal. But these views were specifically protected. It was anticipated when the LWRP was written, when the overlay was written, when numerous bits of code were written, that someone might propose this, and the specific codes were written to prevent just this scenario. So you have to really overlook an awful lot in this particular spot. There are other places where the LWRP would not prevent such a thing. Now, previously, Mr. Mensch noted that his glass house was, and I quote, a teeny-weeny thing. And that given the mess across the river in Kingston, we shouldn't really be concerned what this little thing was going to do. I've spoken to multiple historic preservationists and offered them that view, and they all said that was completely inappropriate, and that essentially, they gave me an analogy. If you're walking down the street, and the other side of the street, there's an overflowing garbage can, it shouldn't encourage you to throw litter on your side of the street. It has nothing to do with it. And the responsibility of this planning board is to administer the code as it applies to this proposal on this side of the river. And comments about Kingston are really irrelevant to what you have to consider. Because if Kingston wants to put a garbage dump over there, it's not really part of what you have to consider in considering this proposal. So one last point, actually, one more thing. The nearly 35 miles that comprise the Hudson River Historic District are of such significance that maybe people don't know this, but Frank Gehry's Fisher Center was originally proposed for the shores of the Hudson River, but preservationists prevailed, and he had to move it into the woods because it wasn't appropriate. And obviously a world-renowned architect and a beautiful building, but it was considered inappropriate to be put on the shore of the Hudson River, and it was moved.
Shores of the creek. It was proposed on the shores of the creek and not the river.
Right, but you would see it.
Yes.
And so Leon Botstein didn't get his way. One last point. This application is really, in talking to a number of attorneys, is a textbook example of what they call self-created hardship. New York State courts have consistently upheld that variances need not be granted where the unnecessary hardship has been created by the applicant. Such cases as Carriage Works Enterprises versus Siegel or Clark versus Board of Zoning Appeals. As stewards of this internationally recognized historic district, your responsibility, I believe, is not only to the people who live here now, but to future generations who will live here and visit this place decades from now, long after we're all dead. And every time you dismantle the protections that have been legislated to defend this sensitive area, you set a precedent, and you chip away at the landmark status of this district. And in my conversations with David, not specifically about this, but he said eventually, when you remove enough things from the landmark district, the landmark district is meaningless. It'll be delisted. So as you remove things from the landmark district, you run the risk of eventually having no landmark district. It's irrelevant. What are the protections? And finally, if this plan is approved with the significant variances needed to do so, it would be against the will and intent of many dedicated citizens and years of work on the master plan. Numerous codes, overlay plans, local, state, and federal declarations of historic significance, and such approval we would view as arbitrary and capricious. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Well,
David's a personal friend of many of us here, David Anton. I've talked with him many, many times. I'm surprised that he copped out the way that he did, but would it be possible for us to get in touch with David, since he had such a remarkable input in putting this plan together? What I'm hearing here with his response to you, with his rescinding himself or recusing himself from his letter, from this process, goes thoroughly against anything I've ever discussed with David. I have a degree in industrial design and art education, a master's in both. So I think I'm qualified to talk about design, as qualified as David is. I just finished the book on the WPA architecture in America. So I'm qualified to talk on design too. But I think David, who really sat here with all of us and all of you, is the person that I'd like to hear what he has to say if he's questioned as to the appropriate quality of this thing.
Certainly the public hearing will be continued, so you can certainly get in touch with him and ask him, ask him your question. Anyone else have anything to add that we haven't heard? Oh, Ryan. Thank you. I don't think so.
Good evening, Board. Hello, Ryan Dowden, Conservation Advisory Board Chairman. Just some requests that the CAB has for a landscape plan. I know you have your variegated hosta, your blue princess. We can't accept this as a landscape plan. We need it more like on paper list on how they're going to be planted, what year, like are they going to be fully grown when they're planted, what height they're like, are they going to be infant, are they going to, what stage are they going to be planted in? If we could have that submitted to the clerk's office, that would be very helpful, part of the landscape plan. Also, we have concerns of the flagstone terrace that will be built in the rear of the property with the steps because of stormwater runoff. Because that will go right over the ledge and down potentially on either the tracks and eventually into the Hudson River. So that's definitely something that needs to be talked about and considered. Next would be, will there be, a plan? We haven't seen a plan, a landscape plan submitted yet. I don't think there has been one submitted. Also, we sort of, hopefully with the new stone wall, the materials.
Art has a list of things that he feels should be submitted.
Yeah, Ryan, that is one point that I did pick up on when just looking at the drawings that came in. The planting plan is not a planting plan. A planting plan needs to be accompanied by a planting schedule. What material, what species specifically is going to be planted, what spacing material, how many plants, at what size, at planting time, etc. The other comment I have about the planting schedule that deals with stacked planting is stacked planting is a wonderful concept, but it doesn't work on a year-round basis when you're using hosta as the first level or the first level of the stacking plan. You have to use a year-round species of some sort if you truly want a stacked planting plan. And I say that as a fellow who was a partner for years with 5 landscape architects. I had a couple of other questions while I've got the floor in that regard. One is I think there needs to be some dimensioning on the plans, some more specificity. I know that somebody earlier described the plans as concept plans. Frankly, I agree that they are concept plans. They need to be more specific, harder line drawings, dimensioned, etc. I think there's an inquiry as to the intended use of the second floor of the existing structure. The use of all other spaces is identified on the plans. The use of the second floor of the existing structure is not identified. Those are just points to to addressing refinement of the plans. Ryan, and then I have a couple other comments after Ryan about procedure.
Okay.
Just some other things with the current objectives for the special use permit with the RCO district, I think, well, the board feels that with the plans being amended, that potentially this should be revisited based on architectural design has changed, sort of the whole design of the property has changed. So as we feel the board should re-look at how the overlay district pertains to this site. And you will have shortly a revised consistency review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ryan, what is it you're referring to there?
The objectives that you printed out with the board of the RCO district.
The 12 objectives in the Rhinecliff Overlay District.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything new to add? No. Then I'd like to say a couple of things. First of all, I think you all need to understand the planning board is an administrative body. The town board is the legislative body. They set policy. They made the law. Okay? The zoning enforcement officer has the authority to interpret the law. If you don't like what he or she says, you can go to the zoning board of appeals to appeal their interpretation. Whatever their interpretation is, if you don't like it, then you go to court. Okay? The planning board administers the law as interpreted by others. The planning board does not have the authority to modify it, to waive it, or to change it. As you've read in here, there's about 3 or 4 pages of the Rhinecliff Overlay District that we, under oath, because we all take an oath before we sit up here, are required by law to meet, okay? So I've heard a lot of things about this is going to be a good idea here to give this for that or whatever. That doesn't matter to us because we're not allowed to have that matter to us. The law matters to us, the law as it's written here. Much of the discussion that we've been having here about this particular project should be before the town board under a process of amendment. If these are things you don't like, that you feel are too subjective, that you feel somehow is one person's taste versus someone else's, that's what we are tasked with doing. If you don't like it, and you're entirely entitled to not like it, you go to the town board to change the law. We can't do that. We can't modify it. We can't reinterpret it. We can only administer it to the very best of our abilities. One of the things that I'm very uncomfortable with is the whole issue of the scenic impact of this project. Because of where this project is located, it is one of the most probably regulated and recognized and designated areas in the continental United States. And it's based primarily on its scenic value. So I'm going to ask the planning board one more time to engage the services of George James to do a survey, to do a proper visual analysis of this property. He is not going to be the one who's going to then decide whether or not it's good or bad. That's our job. He is going to be providing us with that information. So that's what I would like to ask the planning board right now, to pass a motion to engage his services to provide us with that information so that we have as an objective a basis as we possibly can get our hands on about what this might look like from Grinnell Street, from across the river, from sitting on the river, from any different vantage point that people could see this from, so that we at least have an objective basis to work from.
Take it upon yourself to make that motion.
I will make that motion myself.
I'll second it.
Any discussion from members of the board?
Roll call.
Roll call. Jesse?
Aye. Aye.
Melanie? Woody?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we will be engaging the services of George James to do a visual analysis for us. I believe he can do it within the 30 days permitted. As this is an amended application, it's now going to have to be recirculated. There are a number of different groups that are going to have to be able to comment on this. Art, I think you also had some comments.
A couple of comments, and they also relate to procedure, even without that particular step being taken by the planning board. The matter of coastal consistency determination has been raised here this evening. The planning board has to wait for a recommendation from the Waterfront Advisory Committee, which is another label, another hat that the CAB wears. The planning board cannot, and the planning board has the responsibility for actually issuing the consistency statement. It's not the CAB. The CAB simply makes a recommendation to the planning board. But again, the planning board can't move in that direction until a report is received from the WAC, and the WAC has a certain time period, 30 days, in which to do that. Also, in briefly reviewing and knowing it came in today, reviewing the letter that was received from Dr. Hutkins. There are a number of points raised, a couple of which I've previously raised regarding compliance with zoning law requirements. And there are those matters that certainly need to be addressed, unfortunately, I guess, by the interim ZEO, if a new ZEO doesn't come on board in the near future, because there are questions raised about the compliance of the proposal with various technical requirements and definitional matters that are set forth in the zoning law, and it's not the responsibility or within the purview of the planning board to address those particular matters. They are matters that first have to be considered by the ZEO. And they do include the matter of what constitutes a building, as for instance, as well as the matter of how much of this space is really dedicated to home occupation, and how that meets the limitations on home occupation as set forth in the zoning law and the state building code. So there are a whole series of things, but there's just two examples of the points that are raised. So I would guess the planning board would want a report from the ZEO in time for its June 23rd meeting, or whatever that date happens to be, 25th, I believe it.
Oh, I think you'll get that.
July 25th.
June 25th, which is a Wednesday instead of a Monday.
You will have that, but we will not have necessarily have the CAB's consistency.
When was the referral made to the CAB?
It will be made tonight.
Oh, that's right,
Just
it's made,
accepted it.
because the amended applications have
Right.
just been accepted.
So it's been made tonight.
And
Won't have that until...
on the same basis, until the consistency with the LWRP is considered, that being an important component as to whether or not this project is consistent with community plans, local plans, the planning board really can't move forward on a secret determination, because that's one very important component of the determination that needs to be made. Compliance with community plan, community character, etc. So that's a quick summary
of where we are,
where you're at.
I have a concern. We talked about square footage. I think a definition is required for this board to what we're measuring as square footage, and what is applicable and what is not applicable. Whichever way it falls.
That is the definition that Stephen said is different than the definition that exists in many other regulations. There's no question about that. Well, and he also, and Stephen also commented
Will you clarify that?
about input that he had received from Sally Mazzarella, who served meritoriously as chair of the planning board and then the comp plan committee for a number of years. However, I think we all need to realize, in discussion of Ms. Mazzarella or Mr. Antone or whoever, that the bottom line is the comp plan exists as it exists, the zoning law exists as it exists, as they were adopted by the town board. What any member of any committee might have thought prior to that point in time is not pertinent to the planning board's application of those documents at this point in time. And that's why I think Michael mentioned if there's disagreement as to what the documents currently say or what they should have said, it's a matter for consideration, would be a matter for consideration by the town board in terms of either amending the master plan and/or amending the zoning law.
My point on the square footage is not only this particular project, but any others that we have, so that we're administering it equally
Absolutely.
across the board, and I think that has to be defined a little more crisply than it currently is.
Once again, a job for the town board through the amendment
It would
process.
require a definitional change in the ordinance if it were to be interpreted to be habitable or only habitable area or something
And
between habitable and gross.
they use both terms, gross and habitable, in different places in the law. So, anything else from any?
We're exposed right now with that.
Well, there are a number of areas. Anything else from members of the board? What I'd like to do is continue this public hearing until, what's that, July what? What's that date?
June 25th?
Well, but we won't have the CABs
So
necessarily.
it will not be until July 21st.
July 21st at 6:35. Could I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Hope Joni got that. It is in here.
I mean, you know, the bottom line is, it's been this whole bit about what sells.
Sharon needs to go.
Okay, we're gonna take a 3-minute break so people can move.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
I was going to Diaster, and
Blame me, everyone else does. Robert Duffy, 195 River Road, and 31 Carmel Drive, special use permits and site plan. Conduct of combined public hearing and applications for special use permits and site plan review and approval under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning, application for subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101 subdivision of land, and application for wetlands permit under Town Code Chapter 120 wetlands in the matter of the proposed single-family residential development of consolidated 44.096 acres with site landscaping improvements, guest accommodations including 2 guest cottages, 1 detached accessory dwelling, and other accessory structures in the Historic Preservation HB 20 zoning district, the Hudson River Historic Landmarks District, the Estates District Scenic Area of statewide significance, and the Town of Rhinebeck Local Waterfront Revitalization Area. Being a type 1 action under seeker and a matter pending applications for area variances before the ZBA.
Okay, first matter of business, I think as everyone realizes, or everyone's heard, the Kingston Daily Freeman failed to publish the required notice of public hearing. Consequently, the first item of business for the planning board before moving on to what we'll call informal discussion or continuation under the prior notice would be to move to renotice the public hearing for Wednesday, June 25th at 6:35 p.m.
No, 6:40.
6:40, what do we have, 6:35?
We have 6:35, oh, you're right, 6:30, you're right, the other one's...
The other one's in July. Right, Jones?
They both start with J.
We're renoticing this hearing
for June
25th at 6:35.
All done.
Good.
Except for there was some issue with the newspaper.
Okay, could I hear a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
could
sir.
I just clarify whether or not you're requiring the notices to be sent to the neighbors again? Because they've all been sent, they were properly sent and received.
And they
So if the
therefore-
hearing is open tonight
Yeah.
and continued, that service
Exactly.
is valid.
I would say that service is valid, yes. It's just the notification in the Kingston newspaper that needs to be
Yes.
addressed.
We're going to we're going to get it published immediately so that we have many opportunities to redo it.
And with an apology forthcoming, I'm sure.
3 or 4 chances.
Should be free.
So I think with that said, I guess we just would like to present the amendments, the changes in the plans. I think we've received most of them already. I understand there's something else, another engineering change that's happened in the last few days that I don't think we've received a copy of yet.
So these are just the same thing that's up on the board. I'll go through this quickly.
Thank you. That's all right. It's better that way. It's too late.
Yes, if anybody wants those extras as well. So just a recap from our last meeting, a couple of things that we had shown in the presentation. We won't be showing those again, but just some things that the amended drawings and applications did include were a reduction of the size of what we call Barn 2, resurfacing of the Barn 1 as well as Barn 2 in a stone face, the reduction of accessory dwelling units to be only 1 accessory dwelling unit, removing the kitchen facilities from the other 2 units and therefore proposing those as guest cottages, consolidation of both of the 2 properties, repairing the stone wall on River Road, improving landscape plans to have more deer-resistant plantings and screening and inclusion of, we also included the tree clearing that was done on the hillside in the fall. And additionally, there's a filed application including a wetland permit. There's no buildings
or structures within the wetland zones, but there is a driveway and a utility culvert through there as well. So we explained all of those last time. This time there's just a few memorandum items. Again, we had kind of briefly touched on one of these last time. The first is just this is just a visual analysis sort of study to show this sort of safety fence that we requested. Last time it was a 41-inch tall fence that would match the same height as existing terrace in the back of the house, as well as sort of extending this existing stone wall that you can see. A portion of it is basically flush with the ground now, so we're just proposing to raise that up to be the same 41-inch height as all of this. That's just sort of a close-up. It's a bit of a rendering, but this is the existing. It's sort of in bad condition, so it's to sort of clean that up as well as to extend it up so that there's sort of a safety feature. As you can kind of see a little bit here, there's quite a bit of a drop-off. It's very steep along here, and there was a safety concern on our client's part in terms of his daughter. There are a few other items that one item that was originally in the plans before we had talked about the septic being placed here was a service drive here, which basically just then creates a loop, both for guests staying in these areas as well as just maintenance vehicles. There's a propane refill over here, and so as it is, trucks have to come in and sort of back out. So just a service road here that would create a loop. Also, just a little turnaround here. Same idea, just to create a turnaround for service vehicles coming in.
This is a terrace, but you can't drive over there.
Also, the front courtyard that had a snow melt underneath it because of the client's basically taken that out of the scope for the courtyard as well as the driveway to sort of give back the pervious area that sort of would be taken away by doing that. In doing that, he's also removing the Armor Coat finish and just would be filling this area with white gravel stones, which are basically what already exists on this portion of the road here. Just a few additional plantings to provide additional screening for some of there's an electric board and some utility units here. There's also, between this sort of sidewalk here as well as the security gate, there's a little bit of an open area, so he's also would like to just include a few more trees in there for additional screening. Obviously just within his property, which is close between the road and the red line is the property line. This septic distribution system that we've, let's see. For these three units here, this one, and this one, there was a septic field proposed here. In order to reduce a water line impact for the existing water line that runs through the site that would have had to been relocated, we proposed relocating the site for the septic. For three reasons. One, to reduce the water line impact. Two, to reduce the archaeological phase 3 that was going to be required. And also to reduce the raised berm and the landscaping impact on that area. So the new plan is looking at this. So there's an existing septic field here, there's an existing reserve here, and both the proposed septic and reserve are located here. And the last item is to add an additional well to the existing plans, the proposed plans, that would just be for irrigation as a backup for all of the new plantings throughout the site. These lists of items are included on the last sheet as a sort of memorandum in this package that we have.
Talking about the wells, that facility is serviced by municipal water, huh?
Not currently, no.
Oh, it is?
There's a water line that runs through the site and it used to be hooked up to the original tea house, but it was disconnected when the expansion was done.
Questions from members of the planning board? It is sort of a official, unofficial, official public hearing. Questions from the public?
Or comments?
Or comments? Yes.
I'm representing the owner to the immediate north.
And you are?
My name is Alan Newman, and Annie Leibovitz owns the property immediately north. And there's one question. I know the property well, and I don't see what that blue water feature is that abruptly stops on the property line, because it's bone dry on my client's side. It won't even really grow loosestrife. So it's an open question, and it seems to be a new feature.
We were asked to delineate the wetlands on the site. So this area is a designated wetland as well as the cove itself. And while it is exactly as you say,
It's not open water then?
It's absolutely not open water, but it's just wetland delineation by
Just New Lake. Just questioning, but I mean, literally the Rhinecliff fire truck has gone right across that field. It's very, very dry. So maybe it's a designated wetland, but okay.
There's a hope for what.
And just, if I could just add one thing, the reason that it's shown in color is that it explains why we need a local wetland permit, because the access to the barn is within a buffer of that wetland, so.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. This is good. As you know, this is continued to Wednesday, June 25th at 6:35. Okay, Ryan. There goes dinner.
Pertaining to the wetland permit, would that be extended because the project has changed? Is that still binding? Because
The wetlands permit?
has been resubmitted?
They still require the wetland permit, and I believe that the wetland permit addresses a portion of the project that has not changed.
Okay.
That's-
Because this was submitted
Yes.
to us, and it was dated the 14th of May before
Right.
any new applications were
Right.
presented to would the wetland, would this permit
Correct.
bind to,
Yeah, the discovery was made that a local wetland permit would be needed to do that work right there that's just described, and that's why that came in after the other submission. And then the other changes, basically, that just recently came in were about the relocation of the septic fields.
okay, we just wanted that clarification to make
Yeah.
sure that this permit submitted
Yes, it addresses the work that's, yes.
after being...
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
We have
That's correct.
Yes.
questions on the erosion that occurred on the river side of the site.
And that's also being described. We have information from their engineer. Our engineer will also be looking at it as part of the overall review.
Okay,
As
so
Mike,
he's gonna do it, is he gonna do it again because we have the report from his April 9th visit?
right, we have that, but his report and also the site plans for remediating that area are going to our engineer to review.
Okay.
And I'm sure that if there's any need for a consultation between their engineer and our engineer, we always permit that to happen to speed things along.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And to confirm, your new well, your new septic, archaeology will come back and test those?
Yes, absolutely. It's basically just within this area, but yes, they will.
And where's the new well?
We haven't located the new well. This one exists as it is. This
Yeah.
one was already in the plans as a proposal, and based on that, you can see all these sort of buffer areas we're trying to find where the
But
best.
the new one for irrigation?
Correct, yes. So we included in the disturbance area for the affected
Yeah,
areas.
we'll do the phase one.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments or questions this evening? Very good then. Well, I guess we'll see you all then on Wednesday, June 25th, and it'll be 6:35, so this time you won't have to sit through anyone else.
Lucky you.
And you'll be before the ZBA Wednesday night, yes. Thank you. Okay. Zipping right along. Michael, Boomer Hollow LLC, Jamie Kaibo, Michael DePola, Morton Road at Ellerslie Drive, site plan. Presentation of application for site plan review and approval under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning in the matter of the renovation and reuse of two existing buildings and the erection of a connecting structure and related site improvements, including SDS, to create stall, barn, and riding area for commercial equestrian operation within 112-acre parcel, being a portion of substantially greater acreage controlled by the applicant, planning board review, and procedural consideration as may be timely under town code and seeker. And before Michael begins, I just want to explain what we have here. This is in an ag district. The use of these structures are considered by ag and markets to be legitimate agricultural activities. Therefore, under our zoning law, all that is required is what's called an expedited site plan review, which is what we're going to be proceeding with tonight. It does not require a special use permit. It does require a consistency review under the LWRP, which the WAC will be providing us with. And I think Art in his notes has sort of tried to describe what this expedited process is. So what Michael will be doing tonight is telling us what he wants to do, and then I have a draft resolution for us.
And in terms of the submission, besides explaining essentially the precedence that's given to agricultural projects under the zoning law, the only deficiency that I identified in the application that has not been addressed, and it relates to the coastal consistency review, is that either, Michael, you received from somewhere or you got yourself the wrong coastal assessment form. The coastal assessment form that was completed is the federal form. This board and the WAC needs the town form, which is annexed to Chapter 118.
Yeah.
It's a different form.
Are the questions the same?
No, the questions are not the same.
They're probably easier than the ones that I answered.
Yeah, I think they are.
Then you're all set.
Because the federal form begins with, it talks about applying for a federal permit and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, that's what, that's.
Well, the reason I went to the federal form is because coastal consistency is administrated by DOS, and I had to do a
For a different project.
for a different project. So,
Right. The Army Corps was involved.
So in terms of.
so I'll be happy to give you the easy form.
Yeah, if the board gets to, when the board gets to a procedural resolution, I have a contingency built into the procedural
Got it.
resolution.
Yeah.
So we'll be in good shape.
Tomorrow.
So what do you have in mind?
I don't know how familiar you guys are with the site. The area where the stall barn is being proposed includes two buildings that have existed on the site. One since the probably late 50s, that's what the older gym, and then a large field house building that was built sometime in the late 80s. There was a building that originally connected those two, which had in it a large Olympic-sized swimming pool. That building we demolished, and the connecting building that used to exist between the old and new gym we demolished 3 years ago. The building where the pool was roughly covered. And do you guys have the? You have you have all my big maps.
No, this is all the same stuff.
Okay. Roughly covered the area between the two buildings. So this is the old gym. This is the end of the field house, and the pool area covered this large area here, which is much larger than what we're proposing to construct, which is this connection between the two buildings and this row of stalls that goes along the front of what was the field house. All of these areas where construction is going to take place had a building on them or were a parking area adjacent to a building. They were all covered with impervious, either roof or asphalt. So we're actually in this reducing the size of impervious area on this particular site, and we're also not digging into any ground that didn't have a foundation on it. So that in our overlay of 6 different important sites, whether it's National Historic, archaeology, is significant because it means we're not really disturbing with our construction anything that is virgin ground. The only area where that, there's a septic plan that I submitted to you guys, which is for...
We did get that. We did get it.
You did get it?
Yes.
The plan and the engineering
Yeah,
report.
Okay,
it's all come.
And that's back behind the field house. It is what we're proposing is a great reuse of buildings that have been over the last 15 years either abandoned, abused, or neglected. And it's within the all the proposed valued uses in this district. The LWRP points out agriculture is a prime objective. We're in an ag district. So to return this from its previous state, which was as an institutional use, then to a dilapidated state where it was abandoned for 10 years, now to something that is productive commercial agriculture, I think is, I'm proud of it. It's a great direction.
How many horse stalls?
I think the plan right now shows
20?
I think 24.
That seems about right.
We may end up getting a few more stalls in the old gym building, which is this building here. The basement of it we're using for a stall barn. It had bathrooms and like a metal shop.
Probably locker rooms.
Yeah,
things like
locker
that.
rooms and stuff like that in it before. It's an odd arrangement to try and get stalls into, but because we're trying to reuse the space, we're trying to work out a way to do that. So it's a modest-sized horse facility. What it does offer is, because that field house was already there and it's so large, a really spectacular indoor riding space. And it's a great reuse for that building.
Any questions for Michael? Well, then let me move right along to...
A couple of things on the draft resolution. In a couple of cases, Michael, we get to the F and G, we're just going to add in both cases, well, I'll read F and G. What I'm adding in both cases is an advanced schedule in the interest of expedited review.
Okay.
Asking the VAC for an expedited review, asking county planning for expedited review.
Okay.
The other matter is classification of the proposed action. This is Landmarks District?
Yeah. Yeah.
Type 1 then, right? Type 1 action. But the planning board's the only... Michael, you have your health department permit?
It is... The health department came out one more time. I haven't got the actual permit yet. They wanted to make sure that the place where we were digging our test pits, they wanted to examine us dig a test pit. Because there's been so much change in the site there, they were concerned that we had
You might dig something
created some kind of area that would perk, that really wouldn't perk. But we got into native soil, they looked at it, they did an examination. So I think basically he has to just sign it and send it back. But we've had site visit from the department and we've submitted it. So I don't have the permit in hand, but I'm sure it's
Coming.
coming.
That's for septic?
That's septic for a bathroom for the barn, yeah. It's a small system, it's one toilet, it's a washroom basically.
Okay. I'm just doing...
Shame you took that pool down. That would have been a lovely therapy pool
Technically.
for horses.
You should see the oil tank they had out there to heat it.
And the bill to put in to go out.
We can fill in who prepared
Where's the water?
preparation dates plan on the plans, et cetera. That can be filled in.
Right.
I'll read B, F, and G when we get to them.
Okay. Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows on the May, what's the date of that, Michael, on your submission?
19th.
May 19th, 2014. Application for site plan review and approval by Goomer Hollow LLC, Jamie Keibel and Michael DeCola, under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning in the matter of the proposed renovation and reuse of 2 existing buildings and the erection of a connecting structure and related site improvements, including SDS, to create stall barn and riding arena for a commercial equestrian operation within a 112-acre parcel on Morton Road at Ellerslie Drive, being a portion of a substantially greater acreage controlled by the applicant. 1, determines the proposed use to fall within the definition of agriculture as set forth within the New York State Agriculture and Markets Law. 2, further determines agriculture to be a permitted use within the district's schedule of regulations and as such, the subject of expedited site plan review as described in Chapter 125, Section 125-49G3. 3, in consideration of the above, A, accepts the application and supporting documents, including but not limited to a set of plans, B1 through B16, A1 through A8, prepared by and dated, and we'll get those, including A2, site plan and engineering report and accompanying plans entitled Goomer Hollow Horse Stable Subsurface Sewage Disposal System, prepared by Erdman Anthony and revised to May 13, 2014, and a full EAF Part 1 certified by Mr. DeCola, a coastal assessment form, and an agricultural data statement as adequate to commence review by the public, the planning board, and the board's advisors contingent upon the applicant's completion of the Town of Rhinebeck coastal assessment form in substitution for the federal consistency assessment form submitted. B,
Classifies the proposed action as a type 1 action under seeker for which the planning board intends to serve as lead agency upon concurrence with the Dutchess County Health Department.
C, in the interest of providing expedited review, schedules a public hearing for the application for its special meeting on Wednesday, June 25th, 2014 at 6:40 p.m., and directs the clerk to undertake and/or otherwise cause noticing and posting thereof in strict accordance with the provisions of Town Code Chapter 125 zoning, Section 12577. D, further directs the clerk to distribute the agricultural data statement in accordance with the requirements of the New York State Agricultural Markets Law. E, refers the application to the Town Conservation Advisory Board for review and comment.
F, pursuant to Town Code Chapter 118, Waterfront Consistency Review, refers the application with emphasis on the forthcoming coastal assessment form to the Town Waterfront Advisory Committee for recommendation as to consistency of the proposed work with pertinent coastal policies set forth in the town's LWRP, with, in the interest of expedited review, such recommendation requested by June 23rd, 2014. Gets it in 2 days before the... G, refers the application for site plan review and approval to the Dutchess County Department of Planning for review and advisory opinion pursuant to the requirements of Section 239L and M of the General Municipal Law, with, in the interest of expedited review, response requested by June 23rd, 2014.
H, delegates planning board members. Who wants to go to a visit? Sharon?
I'll go.
And Melody?
Can we get there through Eastgate?
To conduct a field visit to the project site and report their observations at the time of public hearing.
I'd think.
I, request further technical review of the application by the town's planning consultant and without prejudice to requirement for careful consideration by the planning board of any input that arises to the continuing review process as set forth above, authorizes the planning consultant to prepare both a working draft of a full EAF Part 2 and Part 3 as may be required and recommended determination of significance, and the further working draft of a conditional approval resolution, each for consideration when timely by the planning board. Could I hear a motion to approve? Second.
Second.
I will poll the board. Woody?
Aye.
Jesse? Sharon?
Aye.
Melody?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, they'll come and take a look. Refreshment is always appreciated.
914, 806, 2501.
Okay, should we take a break for another 20 minutes?
I'm just going to say, I make a motion, we...
Michael?
I'm sorry?
Adjourn.
Check and see if we've got your email.
Michael D. Cola, all one word, at Gmail.
Okay.
D-E.
Hi. How you doing? Better. Splendid.
You said you began at 6, right?
So share an email to both of us.
You'll shoot it.
I didn't get up at 1:45.
Deadly.
I was at the desk at 5.
Yeah, it's going to be tough this week.
Okay, you guys, I'm gonna move along so we can get everyone out of here,
Yes, yes.
because everyone wants to go home.
48-hour day.
Take care, Michael. Okay, last but not least, well, almost last one. Eric Wallach, 293 Wurtenberg Road, special use permit and subdivision, sketch plan conference, and as may be timely, presentation of application for special use permit, conventional subdivision under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning, and application for subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101 subdivision plan in the matter of proposed creation of 2 single-family residential building lots with access by a common driveway from the entirety of a 57.08 acre parcel in the rural countryside RC5 district, planning board review and procedural consideration as may be timely under town code and seeker. Okay,
Okay.
nice map.
This is just a front sheet with an aerial overlay. So this application, as mentioned, is for minor subdivision. It's an existing parcel off of Wurtemberg Road, right here. It was formerly owned by Cartier, and this application is to create two parcels. The intent right now is that there'll be family-owned parcels, but obviously that can change. There's an existing roadway that heads to the east into the property. It's kind of a wooded, brushy area right along Wurtemberg Road, and then, as you can see from the aerial, it opens right up into a field. And so Eric Wallach is proposing, and actually right now for lot number 1 application, there's a building permit was issued for a house on lot number 1, and it's currently being constructed. And so this proposal creates a parcel for that and an additional parcel to go on the property. There was previously approved septic system that was done for, it's located on lot number 2, and that was originally going to be used for the septic for lot number 1 of the current house, but plans have changed, so along with this application will be application to the Dutchess County Health Department for review and approval of a new sewage disposal system for lot number 1.
Recertificate
For lot 1.
Oh.
New septic for lot 1 right here. This one right here, shown on lot 2, was previously approved.
So they got the building permit because this was one lot and that's what they were going to use.
They were going to use that, then then as plans evolved and...
Change of heart.
Change of heart, so to speak. So with this, it's a proposal for a conventional subdivision, so application for...
Hard to cluster this one.
Right, for a minor subdivision and also a special permit for conventional subdivision. There's currently a driveway that was constructed off of Wurtemberg Road into the property that's intended to be used for the most part. There's some alignment changes that are required just for ease of access and for not only for construction but for emergency vehicles. That would be a driveway up to a point and then split off into 2 individual driveways. The plans that I don't know if the board had a chance to review other plans that I submitted. I mean, they include 3 other sheets that show plans and profiles of the common driveway, specific grading plan, sewage disposal, and an appropriate erosion and sediment control plan.
Very good. Any questions for Mark?
Where's the church?
Oh, further to the south.
Yeah, it's a ways down the road.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's just this side of Frost, right? Just a little bit to the north of Frost.
So it's right in here?
Yeah.
The only thing that I see is going to have to be added to the submission at some point in time, it's not germane to today's activity, is the common driveway easement, ownership, maintenance agreement.
Right.
And I trust council will be developing that for...
Every condition of approval.
I actually have all those materials prepared. So it's, and just a couple minor, I noticed I had a couple typographical errors on the applications that I'll certainly modify because there was a reference to Cadasia, the previous owner, in the application, so I'll modify that to Wallach. I'm sorry, I don't think parcel sizes, there may be a little bit of change, discussing that with the owner. There may be a little bit of configuration change for this piece through here, utilizing some of there's a tree row. There's an existing tree row here, so we may include that tree row, so there may be a minor change. But lot 1 is
48.
48 acres, the other one is, what, 8 acres?
8.84.
Yeah, close, just a little under 9 acres.
You got flex there.
Conforming lots.
They were conforming with regard to road frontage and I can actually, I mean, it's an existing access we are changing it to a common. There aren't any real site distance issues, but I can confirm that with Kathy.
Any questions from members of the board? Well, why don't I get right on it then?
Joan, all finances taken care of?
Okay. We always have to make sure we're paid. Well, not us, but don't want to put that on the public. We're paid. That would suggest something we don't want to suggest. It's getting late, isn't it? The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, upon both review by the zoning enforcement officer and sketch plan review by this board, hereby acts as follows. On the May, whatever date happens to be, 2014 application by Eric Wallach for special use permit, conventional subdivision under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning, and for subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101 subdivision of land, in the matter of the proposed creation of 2 single-family residential building lots with access by a common driveway improvement from the entirety of a 57.08 parcel at 293 Wurtemberg Road in the rural countryside RC5 district, all is depicted within a 4-sheet set of engineering drawings prepared by Mark R. Graminski, P.E. and L.S., and dated April 23, 2014, and otherwise described within a short EAF Part 1 and an agricultural data statement, both as executed and/or verified by Mr. Graminski. 1. Accepts the above cited application for special use permit, conventional subdivision, and subdivision plat approval as adequate for commencing review by the planning board, the board's advisors, and the public. Classifies the application as a minor 2-lot conventional subdivision and proposes the action, and then the proposed action as a unlisted action under seeker for which coordinated environmental quality review is neither required nor will it be conducted. 3. Schedules a combined public hearing as set forth within the annexed notice of public hearing on this application for Wednesday, June 25th, 2014 at 6:45 p.m. and directs the clerk to undertake or otherwise cause the noticing and posting thereof in accordance with the requirements set forth within Town Code Chapter 101, Subdivision of Land, Section 101-4.4D1, and Town Code Chapter 125 Zoning, Section 12566. Further directs the clerk to distribute the statement in accordance with the requirements of the New York State Agricultural Markets Law. Delegates planning board members, who wants to go with me?
Well, I guess I'll have to.
Okay, Woody.
Just remember, when you go out with Graminski, he walks every square foot of the property.
But does he...
Whether you need it or not.
But does he supply refreshment?
No, he doesn't even supply boots, bug material, bug defense.
I said booze. 57 acres,
Wishful
87
thinking.
degrees, and deer ticks.
And they will conduct a field visit.
Okay.
Refers the application to the Town Conservation Advisory Board for review and comment. Requests further technical review of the application by the town's planning consultant and without prejudice to information that may be presented at the public hearing or may arise on the basis of the above cited referral and field visit. Authorizes the planning consultant to prepare working drafts of an EAF Part 2 and Part 3 as may be necessary. Seek a resolution and draft approval resolution for consideration by the planning board when and if timely. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Very good. We have one last item. It's another ZBA referral. You all know the building that in the Integrity Land Use, it used to be CJ's Pizza. It's at the end of the 4 lanes going into the village. There on the right, the office building, and there's the little apartment building next to it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, in the little apartment building... That sounds too good right now. And a couple is living in the... Bob Mine is living in the apartment building, and his wife, and they want to put a second floor on the apartment building. Okay? It's a pre-existing structure that's been an apartment or dwelling for as long as I can remember, whatever.
Yeah, it's Monahan's building with the
Right.
land,
whatever that thing is.
yeah.
And so the problem with it is they wish to, the square footage will exceed the permitted square footage for an accessory dwelling, which is what it is. It's an accessory to the primary structure in the RC5 district. So they're going to the ZBA for a variance, an area variance to allow them to have greater square footage. They're not extending the footprint, anything like that. It's just a second story on the first story.
The interesting thing, though, about the application, and that's why we want to comment about it, is if you take a look at the sketch that's provided, you see the dimension of the components of that second floor. It's just unusual. There's a 500-square-foot bedroom, 120-square-foot closet, and 130-square-foot laundry room. And there's no indication on the plan either as to what the existing square footage of the unit is. It may, in fact, already be non-compliant with respect to the zoning law.
Oh, I imagine it may well be.
So I don't know how you extend something that's already non-compliant.
We actually don't. There must be some information downstairs that didn't get up to us, because there was some information about that, and I think the ZBA has it, maybe we don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it went to the ZBA, it
yeah,
wouldn't have come to
I
us.
don't have it with me now, but all I had was I had the sketch.
No, he bought it. And never, they sold their house. I guess that had been a rental for years, and they sold their house, and he and his wife moved into that building.
He lives in it?
That's where they live. They say it's a little small.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, and the public hearing notice provides absolutely no information.
Yeah, okay.
It's a totally deficient notice.
I don't have enough.
Information we can't act.
Okay, I will pass that on. I'll be going to the ZBA meeting Wednesday night, and I can pass that on.
Check out check out what information.
I'll see what they have to work with.
Especially on space use plan.
Yeah. So, without further ado,
We're up to Woody.
we're up to Woody. No, you may not.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? We stand adjourned at 9:34.
Consider it.
Well done, group, and thank